We got home at 1, no, 12:30 and turned around and.
Good evening, everybody. I have 6:01 PM. I am going to go ahead and call the April 13th City Council meeting to order. All council members are present, so would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have some announcements tonight and then some committee reports. As you might imagine from the agenda, tonight's meeting is all about the All Department Quarter 1 update work session. I do want to recognize Dean Williamson, who received the Mayor's Award of Merit a couple of weeks ago. We typically do that in this room, but as it happens, we did not. We did it in the Parks Department, but wanted to make sure that you were all aware. Dean Williamson has had many years of service to the city, including many years at Washington Park, and is very much appreciated. April 18th, Saturday, coming right up from 9 to noon at our ops facility will be the spring residential cleanup day. You do need to bring some verification of your residence in the city of Anacortes, and appliances are accepted only for an additional fee. More information at anacorteswa.gov/1540. Last week, Councilmember Fantini and I attended the Action Club Awards for their annual Meals on Wheels fundraiser. The Action Club raised almost $45,000 this year for Meals on Wheels, and in their all-time fundraiser total, they have reached almost $260,000 raised for Meals on Wheels. So we really congratulate and appreciate the Action Club who are doing such great work on behalf of our seniors. It was also last week that we became aware of a particularly sophisticated fraud attempt against one of the city's permit applicants. This fraud email looks very much like a real email. It came from the planning director, not from his actual address, but from an address that you might be persuaded is an official address. So we want people to be on the lookout for those kinds of things. One easy way that you can tell that an email is fraud, if it's purportedly coming from the city, is we do not ask for payment via wire transfer, cryptocurrency, or gift card. Parks and Rec is still entertaining signups for all of their summer recreation programs, or actually the signups will start April 20th. And then we want to make sure people are aware of Kids Fishing Day at Heart Lake, which is May 30th. More information at anacorteswa.gov/490. The Community Development Block Grant Program, the annual plan for that is still coming up. Public hearing April 27th. That's the second of 2 public hearings. Comment period is still open. More information at anacorteswa.gov/174. And the Guimas Ferry will be out of service for maintenance May 4 through 17. Skagit County operates this car ferry. It's not us, but we support the outage in that we provide parking on our streets and in our neighborhoods for people that can't park in the Skagit County ferry lot. Notably this year, which follows on last year, no rules are suspended. All the existing parking rules will continue to be in effect during the ferry parking haul out. And that means importantly, that means that parallel parking is the default form of parking in our neighborhoods and on our streets. So if it's not marked for diagonal or perpendicular parking, parallel parking is the rule. There is no part of the Old Town area adjacent to the ferry lot that is marked for perpendicular parking. So you need to park parallel. 6th Street will not be striped for diagonal parking. It will be parallel parking. Anacorteswa.gov/2073 has got more information about the schedule, the parking rules, and your compliance with those rules is appreciated. As we've mentioned here a number of times, anacorteswa.gov/projects has information about all the various projects that are underway, including the one that you may have noticed on Q Avenue adjacent to Safeway. So if you want more information about that or any issues, for example, the Guimas Ferry haul out, you can find those at that project's website. And now, Council, a couple of your committee reports are on the agenda tonight, starting with Port City Liaison Committee. Ms. Cleland McGrath, I see you moving toward the microphone. You're taking that one? All right, thank you.
Thank you. We had our Port City Liaison Committee meeting on April 7th. All of our committee members were here, Mr. McDougall and Mr. Fantini, along with staff and the mayor and representation from the port. We had kind of just a good back and forth, nothing significant details to report. We did discuss somewhat of what's going on with the port, the port of Anacortes and the port of Skagit, and making sure that they are in good communication with one another, and then also how the city can also continue to be supportive and in communication with the port of Anacortes when it comes to recruiting business here, developing business here, and just general goings on. We talked a little bit about the county economic development strategy, which was completed, and I hadn't heard about it. I don't know if any of the other council members present was aware of that strategy that had been developed. So that was good information for us to be aware of and is on the SCOG website if anyone else would like to read it. We talked a little bit about the Washington State ferries and kind of what's going on with that, the challenges of permitting statewide, and how we can be good partners to kind of support efficiency when it comes to permitting legislation and things like that. And then we did a quick update of the event facility, just talking about what our timeline is when it comes to getting to 60% design. I think we're hoping for the end of this month. And then what the port is going to be working on in tandem for their surrounding area. Also, the big thing was the fact that we received $515,000 from the state legislature for the event facility. That's huge, was unexpected. It was not on anyone's radar before, I think, January 3rd, when we hired our lobbyists. So that was a huge accomplishment. And then also Representative Larson was able to assist us with getting $250,000 of federal money. So while we still need more, that is a good start for this first year. And moving forward, we're excited to work together.
Thank you. All right. Do you have something to add to that one?
No, I have something, just a general question.
Mr. Young.
All right, thank you very much. I know that, this has been a wonderful process, and, I know it's been challenging to get to where we are now, but the hope is in what we will have with this facility. One of the things that I'm hoping that we do as a city is recognize in part of the design or part of the motif on the outside, our, native land. I think that it goes so far for who we all are and what our city represents, whether, I'm just saying, whether that's totem, whether that's a motif on the outside, but just that recognition is so important, because Anacortes is the homeland. And we always say these things at meetings, we recognize native land. But I think as we continue to build those wonderful relationships with the tribes and other people of multi-ethnicity, it's important that we make it part of those structures. I know that the parks are doing this already, in others with, names of parks. This has been a wonderful push forward. And so I brought it up before, and I just want to continue bringing it up that as we move forward to 60% and further design, that we don't forget about that piece of it being so critically important to who we are and, where we want to go. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Finance Committee. Anybody?
Mayor Walters.
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. The Finance Committee met last Thursday at 4 p.m. and it was council members Hunt, Cleland McGrath, and me, and our Finance Director, Steve Hoagland. And we spent most of the time looking at a draft presentation for the City Council update that's scheduled for, and the public scheduled for April 20th. And so we'll have a finance update, our quarterly, and it was a review of the PowerPoint with some different charts that staff has been working on for easier apprehendability of the information. And that was kind of fun to see that work in progress. So we'll find all about that on next Monday. That was it.
Mayor Walters,
Thank you. Mr. Fantini.
quick question. So when we get that update on the 20th, because I'm confused by timing of how all the numbers roll out, do we think, was it discussed if we're going to have the March financials by then?
So we'll have March, whoops.
Sorry.
No, we'll have the March financials except for sales tax because we get those 2 months later. So, well, it'll be April, so we'll have February, but we won't quite have March yet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Housing affordability and planning. Ms. Moulton.
I do know how to use this mic. So the planning committee focus was today's meeting, and tomorrow at 10 will be hacks. So we got an update about Mayor Walters's executive order in order to streamline our permitting process and adopt the changes recommended by the study done by Matrix Consulting in 2025. So that's well underway. A lot of internal processes are being worked on and have been worked on, including improving this in sort of customizing the SmartGov software even further than it has been, and standardizing checklists and standard operating procedures for all of staff so that it's more easily understood by applicants, and it's a little more seamless for staff as well. And easy, if there's someone has to step in, it'll be easy enough to figure out what to do instead of relying on certain people for certain knowledge sections. We talked about also a lot of that executive order is about timelines for different stages of permit review. For example, the first review of permits is going to take 2 weeks, and that's for things like single-family residences, duplexes, and small townhouses. Larger projects, of course, will take a little bit longer, but that's just one example of the permitting streamline timeline and the predictability of when reviews will happen based on when the applicant turns in all the necessary information. So Q2, the planning department will continue their full court press on permitting. Another thing that will happen is that some of the things that were sort of overseen by Public Works that are more administrative in nature are going to be the responsibility of the planning department, and that will also increase the streamlining of it. For example, stormwater site plans, actually those will be reviewed by a third party, but review and processing of street and alley vacations and filling and grading permits will move from Public Works to be overseen more by planning because it's more administrative work, and that will streamline things as well. And the staff will also be looking at the unified fee schedule to make sure that the fees are covering the process, the permitting processing and work that's being done. we're not going to make money on it, but just to make sure that the planning department isn't draining the general fund, that it is being paid for the work that it is doing. And we talked briefly about the shoreline management program and our update that is been taken up by the Planning Commission, and that's moving forward along with the critical areas ordinance, which was last updated in 2021 and needs to be updated again. So those are both being worked on. And I think there was one other thing. Oh, there's being consideration of allowing auto and boat repair in the industrial zone. And that will be discussed also by the Planning Commission before it comes to council pretty soon, actually. That was a use that was allowed in the past, but with the 2019 development regulations update, we removed that council removed that from being allowed there. And so that's being revisited because there have been those kind of businesses down there for years. And so that might have been an unintended consequence of that part of the update.
Kind of a quirk in the structure of the code.
Yes. Oh, and also it was council members Courier Young, myself, and Planning Director John Coleman who attended the meeting. Thank you very much.
And if anyone is interested in the text of the executive order on permitting, you can find that at anacorteswa.gov/mayor. Council, any other announcements or committee reports? No? All right, moving on. Our next item is public comment. I did not receive a sign-up sheet, so I take it that means no one has signed up for public comment. Would anyone like to jump up at this time for public comment? No? Do we have anybody online for public comment? All right, well, then I'll go ahead and close the public comment period. Yes, okay. All right, thank you. Next up is our consent agenda, 3 items on the consent agenda. Council.
Mayor Walters,
Mr. Young.
in lieu of, unless there's in lieu of that, I'd move that we approve the consent agenda, items 5A, B, C.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to approve all items on the consent agenda. No discussion is allowed on the consent agenda, so we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The consent agenda is approved. All right. That brings us to our main and only item of business tonight, which is our work session and presentation from all departments about the progress we've made in Q1. We have a couple of introductory slides here that if Mr. Hoagland is good enough to advance to, I will give some introductory remarks. Over the first quarter, we have been doing work implementing the executive order that I executed on day 1, which has this framework of conservation, reformation, we don't usually call it that, and investment. Conserve, reform, invest. And you'll see those themes highlighted repeatedly in the presentation tonight. We're asking people to conserve money where they can, to reform our processes to be more efficient and make our dollars go further. And then also, we are very much willing to invest money where it means that we will get more payoff going forward. We've been working on improving internal and external communications, and a lot of that is on the infrastructure side, setting up our new internet, setting up new processes for improving our communications, and we'll continue that work throughout the year. We've been preparing for the Q2 permitting sprint that was kicked off by the permitting executive order. We've filled or otherwise dealt with a couple of department head vacancies, and we are preparing for the 2027 budget season, which promises to be just as much fun as last year's budget season. And beginning with capital facilities planning, because that informs a whole lot of how we spend a lot of the money in a discretionary way. So we have new capital facilities planning software that you're going to be hearing about. And all of this has preoccupied a lot of our time. But each individual department has a lot of its own successes to recite. So we're going to go through those. We are here in a work session format, so council members need not call out to be recognized in order to ask questions. However, we have something like 12 presentations, 10 minutes each. So if we hold to that, we'll be at 2 hours. So what I would suggest is that council members not ask questions during the presentation unless they are short or burning. Or actually both. Even if they are burning, that they also be short. Or you really feel like you've got to have it addressed immediately. Otherwise, if you take notes, every slide has a slide number at the bottom. So if you're taking notes on a particular slide, jot down that slide number, and we can quickly return to that slide later so that we can get back to the visual that you wanted to ask a question about. So for instance, slide 4, all the presenter is going to do is type 4 in and hit enter, and it will jump back to that slide. It's very quick to get back to that. So with that introduction, I think we are almost ready to go here. This functional org chart is just some high level explanation of where things fit into the city. The blue boxes are either departments or divisions. The darker blue ones toward the top, IT and fiber, both report directly to me. They used to be part of administrative services, which we sort of condensed when that department had left at the beginning of the year. Otherwise, these pink boxes or purple boxes do not necessarily represent the precise divisions within those departments, but the functions within those departments. It's just a bit of reference. We're not going to go through all this for you. And that leads us to the finance department. Mr. Hoagland, take us away.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, members of the audience. So I wanted to give a quick update what we've been doing first quarter so far. So generally, the finance department's year centers around 3 primary activities, and that's the annual report preparation, the annual budget preparation with the CFP. We are required to update the CFP every 2 years. However, generally, we update the CFP every year, the capital facilities plan. And then the annual audit by the state auditor's office. There's ideally, these would run concurrently or sequentially, but there is quite a bit of overlap. And this year, some of you know, has been a little bit challenging. We are still working with the state auditor's office to get the fiscal year 24 audit finalized. I believe a exit conference invitation went out just today to council members. In addition to the annual audit, right now we're in the midst of preparing the 2025 annual report. There's a variety of reconciliations and things that need to be done before we can print the financial statements or the annual report in total. The annual report, because the city of Anacortes reports on a GAAP basis, generally accepted accounting principles, it's full set of financial statements with footnotes, supporting schedules, and required supplementary information, affectionately known as RSI. It's important information, though. We do have users that rely on our data, for example, rating agencies, for continued ratings of the city's bonds that continue to be bought and sold on the secondary market. Also in first quarter, we found the Planet software. Ms. Hunt mentioned this a week or 2 back in her last report of Finance Committee, and this will come into play in a large way when we do the capital facilities plan update. Also, the ERP implementation, replacing our current Tyler Eden system. It's with another Tyler system called EERP. The process so far has been a number of full-day sessions with Rhonda Peck. She's leading that implementation process along with the subject matter experts in some of the areas that have been reviewed so far. So the intent is to have the system live July 1, and we'll start using that for fiscal year 27. Another thing we've been working on is trying to procure data from the Department of Revenue. We want to be able to do serious analysis on what a B&O tax would look like, and it requires access to additional data that we currently do not have. We have just within the last couple of weeks finally got forms that we needed from DOR and submitted those forms, and now we're waiting to hear back for next steps. So in attention to Mayor Walter's executive order, we've been looking at opportunities to conserve our own budget. So in addition to losing an accounting tech through the 26 budget process, we've eliminated subscriptions that we've typically held on to, for example, the Wall Street Journal, the Kiplinger Letter, things of that nature. And we've also curtailed in-person training pretty considerably. We have also revamped the budget adjustment request. So this is a process that we looked at some years ago. We reinitiated and improved that process in Laserfish and now have actually released that updated BAR form, the budget adjustment request form. This is important, particularly so we can actually remove those cost savings that we have found through the budget through, for example, attrition gains. We can have those budget adjustment forms come into the finance department and get added to our quarterly budget amendment that comes to council, and we won't lose that information. What's next for us in the conserve area? Deep dive into the expense trends across the city. This is something the mayor touched on briefly in his state of the city, but we'll have more to come on that when we have our future finance updates. On the reform category, so we've had to review our processes. We've been reviewing our processes to increase efficiencies, but also with the loss of that FTE, we've had to be creative about our coverage in the finance department, and that has resulted in a 2-hour closure of the cashier's window every day from noon to 2 p.m. We're also expecting that we'll have additional efficiencies in our new ERP system that'll be coming later in the year and in the coming year once that process or those once that system is in place and those processes can be better evaluated. Another goal is how we share information. As mentioned, we have implemented the budget adjustment form in Laserfish. And we are also reviewing the quarterly updates that will be coming to council starting in a week from now. Additionally, in order to improve our communication and transparency, the fee schedule, unified fee schedule will be codified as well. The investment category, we've been continue to monitor spending across all departments, identify other revenue streams as one of our primary goals. So what we've delivered so far, the 2026 budget reporting tool, so that's been shared with department heads and managers through SharePoint. And you'll see a screenshot of that here in the next slide, but it's very user-friendly and an easy way now that everybody has access to that same budget to actual information to more easily monitor their budgets. And again, we're also expecting to see more of those tools as we implement EERP. So one of the most important goals here is identifying other revenue streams. And we worked with the city's operations department to do the analysis on the city's fleet. And then, as mentioned, continue to work on getting the revenue information from DOR to do that analysis of a city B&O tax. Quickly, the finance department budget. Overall, you can see the way the columns are lined out here. This first column, the light blue, is 24 actuals. The next column is in blue, light blue is 25 actuals. And then the next column with the dark blue percentages is the percent of budget spent so far this year in the 26 budget. Next column is the remaining budget. And then that light green column is the 2026 adopted budget. So, and then the last column there is how much has actually been spent. So pointing out that the overall spend rate at 12% for the finance department, it's really skewed because of this interfund loan down here under miscellaneous internal, the $700,000 item. That's the interfund transfer from the general fund to the parks fund for the skate park restroom project. That's the finance department is where those interfund transfer bars numbers reside. Everything is pretty much tracking as we would expect. Other than that, when you look at professional services at a 3% spend rate, we're getting our invoices from Tyler for the ERP implementation on a quarterly basis. So that'll change after we get that first invoice. And this, I'll point this out, salary and wages at 26%, very slightly over budget. When we put the budget in place last year, we had a new utility billing clerk who was still in her probationary period. Once that billing position finishes the probationary period, it gets moved to a lead position. And I believe that's why that's off. I overlooked that element of the salary and wages budget. So it's slightly over budget at this point through first quarter.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the audience. I'm here to present quarter one updates for the Human Resources Department. Human Resources supports the full employee life cycle across the organization. Our department is composed of myself, HR Director, and one HR Generalist serving 295 employees citywide, or 247.75 full-time equivalents. We provide support across key areas, including compensation, benefits, and employee relations, as well as recruitment, performance management, safety, and training. In addition, we oversee compliance, risk management, and specialized programs such as civil service and LEP administration for police and fire retirees. Ultimately, our role is to support both our workforce and the organization from hire through retirement. As for our quarter one accomplishments, we successfully negotiated 2 major labor agreements, Teamsters and IAFF, both for 2026 to 2028. We also earned the Wells City designation, which will give us a 2% medical premium discount, excuse me, in 2027. On the public safety side, we made good progress in fire by hiring 2 paramedics and 2 EMTs, with 3 of those positions supported by the SAFER grant. We also continued interviewing for police to maintain a current eligibility list. We also have an opening right now, so we will be pulling from that list. We also organized and launched police and fire promotional testing, which happens every 2 years, including scheduling, written exams, and upcoming assessment centers. Looking ahead to the remainder of 2026, we have several key priorities. A major focus will be recruiting and filling the vacant fire chief position, along with completing police guild arbitration and contract negotiations. We will also continue progress on digitizing personnel files and transitioning benefit information into SharePoint to improve organization and accessibility. In addition, we'll implement our 2026 personnel policies, monitor retention and turnover trends, and roll out the AWC online benefits portal. Our open enrollment begins November 1st, and we're also preparing to add an HR staffing in 2027 once the retro program contract has ended. Looking at our near-term goals over the next 1 to 3 years, a big focus will be the ERP implementation, with the HR module rolling out starting in 2027. We'll also be updating personnel policies to reflect recent state and federal law changes and improving how we track medical leave like FMLA and PFML. Another priority is redesigning our performance evaluations to be more competency-based and continuing to monitor frozen positions and budget savings. So overall, this is about improving systems and staying compliant and being more strategic with our workforce. Looking at our long-term goals, the focus is really on modernization and sustainability. We want to automate more HR processes. That's like onboarding, orientation, and benefits. enrollment. This will be implemented through the ERP system and fully digitize and organize all of our personnel files. There's also a strong focus on retention, including tracking turnover and exit feedback with a goal of reducing voluntary turnover by about 2% from our current baseline, which is 6.83% for 2025. We'll continue expanding mental health and wellness initiatives and invest more in supervisor training, especially around documentation, performance management, employee relations. And lastly, we'll be focused on building stronger workforce and succession planning while continuing to ensure we stay compliant with all the employment laws. Right now, for our budget, spending is coming in right where it needs to be. Most of our major expenses are going to be happening toward the end of the year. That is promotional testing, which is happening right now. So that will come through probably in a couple months. You'll see that hit our budget, as well as police arbitration, which hopefully will be scheduled at the end of this year, hopefully sooner. And then overall, everything is pacing as expected and the budget remains on track.
Okay, I am excited to share with you all what legal's been doing Q1. So to get started, just a general overview, which I won't go through, but the big buckets of work that the legal department covers, from contracts to claims to managing outside counsel to dealing with public records, prosecution. So we have a broad range of things that we cover. Recent accomplishments and things of note, I wanted to mention that there was a 16% increase in contracts and modifications in 2025. So we last year had over 500 contracts and modifications, and we've worked hard over the past few years to improve our language around data security and have been able to be more and more successful as time goes on in protecting that language in contracts to make sure that the public's information is secure. First quarter, we were successful in defending the city against a SEPA appeal of the determination of non-significance for Ordinance 4092. We also just last week settled a Growth Management Hearings Board appeal of a Shoreline Master Program. Working closely with parks, we successfully negotiated a PSE lease for the summit of Mount Erie that led to some additional income for the city. And we've worked with the port to coordinate a number of property transfers, including a vacation, to support their West Basin development, and that work still goes on. So kind of breaking down based on the executive order buckets, in terms of conservation, one of the biggest things that we have control over in the legal department's budget is using outside counsel. And so we have handled all of the Growth Management Hearings Board appeals that we've had in-house. So we've not spent any money on outside counsel from the general fund. In terms of outside counsel for utilities questions, because there are questions that come up. I've tried very hard to make sure that we limit those questions to the utilities that are funded by rates. In terms of, there's not a lot of flex in our budget, but we have tried to conserve where we can. Staff training is really important in the legal department as laws and things change, and we've really made a focus on finding low cost or free training. And staff have been successful in doing that and have gone to a number of training opportunities that have been at no cost. We've made the decision to delay supply and training purchases where we can. Two examples are I often go to the conference for the Washington State Association of Municipal Attorneys, and I've decided to push that off for this year. It's several days, it's out of the area, so we're going to conserve those costs. And we've talked about sending Greg to a laserfish conference, Mr. Franciak, and we've decided that we're not going to do that this year. So we'll hope for a rosier financial picture in the future to resume those types of training activities. We also have looked at DocuSign, which some of you may be familiar with, but many people may not be. It's a platform that we use to allow for electronic signature, and it's what we use for all of our contracts. We have to date used it for resolutions and ordinances that council approves, but strictly not necessary to do it for ordinances and resolutions. So we've decided to pull back on that to save a little bit of money there. In terms of reforming, there's been a lot of work that's been done in the laserfish forms realm, and big thank you to Mr. Franciak, who is our laserfish guru. But we've tried to streamline some of our processes. One of the big ones is contract approval. So all of those 500 plus contracts have to go through a laserfish form process where they're reviewed and approved. And we've updated that process to allow for simultaneous review so that they don't get stuck in somebody's inbox, which will hopefully allow us to be more efficient with contract turnover. We also have removed some redundant contract approvals, and we've made some improvements to the grants laserfish process. In terms of public records, we've been working on building a public records request form in Laserfish rather than the form that currently exists in Civic Plus, which will allow us to better track the requests and our responses. In terms of investing, one I'm really excited about is related to bidding. So currently when we have a project where we have an invitation to bid, interested parties submit written sealed bids in an envelope, and we have an opening with a meeting and people are doing math and we're getting all kinds of forms. But there are platforms that allow for that process to happen online. And so we've been looking into that and have identified that it has the potential to really save the city some money in a couple of ways. First of all, we did a look at the invitations to bid that we did last year. There were 16 of them. And I think we spent a total of 144 staff hours. So, you know, significant money when you look at staff time in real dollars. But the bigger potential saving is bidding errors. So we had a project this last year where the low bidder filled out the wrong form. And so we were legally unable to accept their bid and had to award the contract to the next highest bidder, which was an increase of $36,957. So the nice thing about these online bidding platforms is that they won't allow somebody to submit a bid on an incorrect form or if they don't have all of the requirements. And that just happened to be a really timely and clear example of why this is helpful. But we often have errors in bids, or the math isn't done correctly, or we don't have all of the forms. And this will help contractors know what they need to do, and it will be more efficient with staff time. So we're looking forward to that. The cost of that platform is approximately $7,000, which we also have looked at how the invitations to bid were sort of divided between the general fund and the utilities, and the funding for that is going to be a third general fund, roughly a third water, and a third wastewater. So mostly funded by the utilities. The ongoing costs for that will be about $6,000 a year, but we think it's going to be really efficient. So, and then another area where we're investing is we're making some updates to Laserfish and the way that Laserfish does records management for us. So right now, all of our records management rules live in folders that are in the metaphorical digital basement, and there's an opportunity to upgrade so that the retention periods will be tracked by the document instead of digital basement folders. And this is going to allow us to be more proactive about disposing of records at the end of their retention period, making sure that we're updating the retention schedules as the Washington legislature updates things, and will allow us to be more efficient. So we're excited about those changes. So the remainder of 2026, we plan to fill the now vacant legal assistant position. We also have awarded an unpaid summer internship to an intern who's going to come and help us, who's excited to learn about the legal department and help us out. Again, we're going to complete the transition to transparent records management and Laserfish. We are working with the Public Records Committee and the IT department to update document storage protocols. We plan on resolving, to the extent that we can, the pending Growth Management Hearings Board cases without the need for outside counsel. And while there will be many code updates coming up, some of the big ones are an update to the code regarding grants processes and a complete update of Title 13, which is our utilities. In terms of budget, I failed to change commentary on budget pacing, so you get my oral commentary on budget pacing here, but we're right on track. You can see that the overall utilization is 23%. As I said, there's a lot of stuff in the legal department that we don't have control over. Salaries are what they are, benefits are what they are. Those are at 25%. Interfund percentages are at 25%. Our professional services is at 19%. Professional services is where we pay the city prosecutor out of. So that's a little bit low, but that's kind of where we would want that to be. And then you can see supplies. We've been very careful with our supplies budget and our travel and training budget. So that is it for me. Thank you.
Darcy, if you could stay up there.
Yes.
Jose Cervantes is our IT manager, but he's unable to be here tonight. So I'm going to give you his slides. I need you to advance the slides for me.
I'd be happy to do that.
So a recurring theme in the IT department is some of the stuff that Darcy touched on in the legal department. We are working to improve our efficiencies with our software and other tech. So one of those is transitioning the cell phones from AT&T to Verizon. As a result of the transition, they give you those offers of free phones. We were able to take advantage of that too for several hundred of them. And we're saving a significant amount of money annually as a result of that transition. It was a lot of work for the IT department and a lot of work for other staff. However, we successfully we're close to 100% on that transition. All the phones have been swapped out, and I think some of the mobile data terminals still may be required to be done. IT has also been supporting the ERP transition in the finance department. And importantly, IT is working on some revisions to our Microsoft contract. You might have seen that was on the agenda. I think it was last week or the week before. We pulled it, but it'll be back next week. Working out some additional details on that. That was on your agenda as a 1-year agreement, but if we sign a 3-year agreement, we can lock in that pricing. So that's highly desirable. So we pulled it to change it from 1 year to 3. But you're also going to see some edits to prepare for the transition of our telephone system from Ring Central to Teams. IT is still evaluating that, so that's not a for sure thing yet, but with the new contract, we'll be able to fully evaluate that on 10 systems and then potentially roll it out to staff. If we do roll it out to all staff, we will be saving several $1,000s a month just by converting the phone system. And then we will also be looking at integrating our security software with Microsoft Defender instead of a separate security program. And if we do that, that will also help us save more money per month. IT is continuing to conduct weekly public IP scans. This is part of their vulnerability management sweep. And then they do monthly web application assessments in partnership with CISA, which you can all look up on your own if you want to know what that means. Multi-factor authentication, I know that one, is now fully deployed for 100% of city staff. So that is certainly good news and well needed. And a lot of what IT works on a regular basis is security focused, especially right now, given current geopolitical traffic risks. But they also are conducting quarterly disaster recovery testing. And as part of those geopolitical risks, they have intensified monitoring for high impact environments, specifically SCADA, the utilities. You might have read in the news some places other than here that have had difficulty with foreign agents hacking into utility systems. So we are trying to stay up as much as we can on that, giving that really high priority. And they're looking at a new VPN system that would enable them to provide access to outside vendors. So for instance, our SCADA consultant, while not providing them more access than they need. IT also expanded our server capacity substantially because we are consuming it with records, and that's something related to what Darcy talked about. Our records committee will be meeting to try to work on some protocols so that we can generate fewer records, fewer copies of records, and consume less data. And very notably, the IT department was able to extend the hardware replacement cycle on our PCs from 4 to 5 years, which means we didn't buy a whole year's worth of PCs. And then also really notably, they were able to extend the server warranty contracts. They were able to get a third-party warranty contract on some servers, which meant we didn't have to buy those servers. So that was tens of thousands, maybe $100,000 of savings. We will have to replace them eventually, but we didn't have to replace them this year. And I think that's the only slide except for budget. And they're tracking, they're less than 25% in all categories.
Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor, and members of the public, both physically present and virtually present online. I am Jim Lemberg. I manage the city's fiber division. We'll walk through quickly. Our ongoing vision, we want to make this bold and upfront, is to contribute to the city's general fund balance. Beyond that, in terms of what we do with the fiber, we are very pleased to maintain continuous internet service availability. We wish to provide the very best in-class customer service among internet service providers. We want to maintain a healthy pace of new customer installations and then provide rewarding and fulfilling careers to the staff. I feel this is very important. What we've done so far this year is indeed we have maintained 100% availability. Although there have been issues within homes due to any number of things, the mouse chewed through my cable and similar sorts of things. As a whole, we have never lost connectivity to the rest of the world from our network core. We are doing very well in terms of new customer installations. We are 26 ahead of where the revenue forecast said we would be at the end of March. So we've installed between January, February, and March 158 new customers, which again is 26 ahead of what the revenue forecast assumed. Our overall take rate is approximately slightly over 50% there. Due to the very competent assistance of the city's Public Works Department, we have been able to complete the backbone construction in the area funded partially by the EDA grant. That backbone construction consists of digging a trench, placing conduit in it, backfilling it, burying a few volts here and there. We still have to pull fiber through that conduit. We still have to do some fiber splicing, but the basic construction has been completed. So that's a big woohoo. We have also entered into a contract for on-call work for a company that specializes in aerial cable construction. Every once in a while, believe it or not, somebody knocks over a utility pole. It doesn't happen very often, or a dump truck forgets to lower their dump bed and drives through the city with a dump truck bed up and snags a cable here or there. And so we do have a need from time to time for ad hoc aerial work. So we successfully entered that contract. And then with a big woohoo to the mayor, he's been very helpful in revising some of our fiber web pages, and that should not go unnoticed. It's a very big deal. The remainder of 2026, very pleased that we are partnering with the city's Senior Activity Center and the city library. One of our staff will be leading some tutorials that will be open to the public on what you can do with your internet, how you can stream video instead of paying some other unnamed company for your video content. You can pay somebody else a small portion of that, what you used to pay, and how you can use the internet to make telephone calls and so on. We will also be continuing to update the fiber division's pages on the city's website. Sorry there, I had a mental challenge for a moment. I've included just a little bit of detail there. We will continue to do new customer installations. We will receive, once I'm able to navigate the EDA's dungeons, we'll be able to get the final $225,000 on that grant that is due to us. We will complete, and matter of fact, we've completed a fair amount of backbone construction in ad hoc locales. These are tiny pockets throughout the city where for one reason and another, we simply were unable to get the backbone infrastructure deployed as a part of any of our major project phases. We just knew that we were going to have to come back at some point. That was included in Fiber's 2026 capital facilities plan, and that work is actually currently underway and more or less completed. Then we also, as I mentioned earlier, we reach around 50% of the city's residents and businesses. Well, that leaves the other 50%. So a bit later this year, we'll start fairly aggressively doing some marketing in order to reach that non-low hanging fruit, and we'll see our take rate increase even more. Our near-term goals continue contributing positive cash to the city's general fund, find ways to market to the other half of the city that we have not yet persuaded to become our customers. We want to deploy our own in-house trouble ticket system. At present, we use an outsourced party for that. But we want to bring that in-house for a number of reasons in order to do it better and in order for us to own the historical trouble ticket data. We want to deploy a particular server that will allow us to more efficiently manage the several thousand IP addresses that we have. At present, we manage them, we use them in a fairly inefficient manner. And once we deploy this additional server, and it's not new hardware, it's simply a virtual server that runs on hardware that the city already owns, we'll be able to manage our IP addresses much more, manage and use them much more efficiently. We want to eventually sometime deploy the next generation of network technology that will allow us to deliver more than 1 gigabit per second of internet service. We want to market and develop new as yet undefined services. I've had a number of conversations with staff about what else the fiber division might be able to do, and we've had a number of conversations, and honestly, I would emphasize that remains as yet undefined. But we are convinced that there are other services we can offer, other revenues that we can generate. We, believe it or not, I think I will retire at some time. I'm not sure when. That horizon is over the horizon still, but someday it will cross the horizon and approach us. And so we need to plan for that. And that was already alluded to in terms of succession planning. And so we just want to do a little bit of that. During the next several years, we will find ourselves transitioning from an operating mode of building the network and operating it to more operating the network and maintaining it. And so we'll see a bit of a transition as that happens. Longer term goals. Our current gateway router that connects us to the rest of the world has been in service since 2019, and at some point it will need to be replaced. When that happens, it will be a part of Fiber's capital facilities plan. We want to evolve our value proposition to remain best in class. When we started this back in 2019, we had a value proposition. But you know, the world is changing. And companies, enterprises, endeavors that do not change with the world eventually get left behind. And we don't want to do that. You don't want me to do that. So at some point, we'll evolve our value proposition in order to keep pace with the rest of the world. And as I've noted before, we'll be developing new services as the market indeed changes. With regard to the mayor's executive order, we have postponed a $53,000 expense that was in Fiber's 2026 capital facilities plan. We found a way around that. Actually, it's been the IT staff that's done that. Fiber can't take credit for that. It was the IT staff that did that. But the Fiber's CFP is benefiting from that for 2026. We are also, we had in our 2026 CFP $45,000 for outside plant engineering provided by another party, knowing it specifically. We will by and large avoid spending that money. And then in terms of reforming, we're going to focus a bit more on how we communicate with the customer base and with the community. And I've specifically noted there to improve Fiber web pages, but I would expand that to generically say we want to up our game in terms of how we communicate. Investing, well, we have completed the EDA backbone construction. We're going to be receiving that $225,000. I don't know exactly when. It will be during 2026, but I hesitate to put an actual date on it because it's the government. No, it's that other government. It's not this government. We are continuing to, in the ad hoc areas, build the backbone construction. That is an investment, and it will allow us to gain access to additional customers who in turn will send us a check every month. We will continue new customer installations and get yet more checks, increase the ongoing revenue. We'll be standing up 2 dark fiber services, one for Cortland and one for Samish Indian Nation. Those aren't great numbers, huge numbers, several $1,000s a year each, but it's a bit of additional revenue, and that's a very good thing. And then we will plan in late 2026 and during 2027 a fairly aggressive marketing effort in order to reach and win new customers, and again, that will increase our revenue. Just a few notes about the Fiber Division's financial performance. We've delayed some of our expenditures on supplies and small tools per the mayor's executive order. The other improvements line is way ahead. You see there we've spent 52% of the budget. The reason for that is that back in 2025, we had to ask ourselves, as we planned the 2026 capital facilities plan, how much work will need to be done in 2026. Part of that answer was how much work will get finished in 2025. We overestimated how much work one of our contractors would complete during 2025. That work has ended up occurring during the first 3 months of 26. It's not unplanned work. It's just work that got moved from 25 to 26. And so that's why that number is 52%, way above what you would expect to see after 25% of the year having gone by. And then the very last comment that I would make on the financial performance is you see that we spent $3,700 in the machinery and equipment line. I would simply note that that's not actually unanticipated spending. Those dollars were in Fiber's CFP, but they were in the other improvements area. So they're not unplanned spending. They're just spending that actually gets accounted in a slightly different account. On to our revenue status. I apologize that this slide only represents January and February. So I've prepared a few numbers to give you a little bit better insight into Fiber's revenue performance. During January, our actual revenues were 6.9% ahead of what we had forecasted January's revenues would be. Our February revenues were 6.8% of what we had forecasted. Our March revenues were 9.1% ahead of what our forecast had been. So in total, the January, February, and March combined revenues were 7.6% ahead of what the forecast had been. So I consider that all good news. And it's mostly due, not mostly, it's entirely due to the efforts of the staff that place new customers into service. The bottom line is that new customers are being put into service a bit faster than anticipated. The other part of that is that, as you will remember, we offer two different classes of service, 100 megabits per second and 1 gigabit per second. As I built our revenue forecast, I try to make conservative assumptions and assume more 100 megabit customers than gigabit customers. The opposite is turning out to be true. More people want gigabit service than we had anticipated. And so that's a part of why we're running ahead of forecast. Thank you very much. It is a deep privilege to work for the city of Anacortes, and I appreciate it.
Good evening, Mayor Walters, City Council, members of the public. I'm Chief McDonald with the Fire Department, and I'm here to present the Fire Department first quarter report.
You might need to get a little bit closer to the mic and feel free to adjust it.
Okay.
Perfect.
So before I started looking ahead, I took the time to look back. And I think some of this, back in 2014, the Fire Department hired a consultant group, Citygate Associates, to analyze the fire department by evaluating the fire department's operations, our level of service, our administrative oversight, and they were to report back their findings. The report was presented in December of 2014 with 36 findings, 29 recommendations, including some best next steps. And those best next steps were to develop performance measures, to improve the current level of service, increase the on-duty staffing, update the policies, develop a modern training program, and address fire and life safety inspections. During the last 12 months, Chief Harris, Chief Burbank, and myself discussed strategic goals on how to address recommendations from the Citygate group. We considered much information, and as we approached the task, before deciding to develop, analyze, and create a series of strategic goals. Here are those goals. First one is establish an annual fire inspection program. Commercial businesses are important to Anacortes and a vital contributor to our community. Inspecting commercial businesses ties directly to the mission of public safety. We intend to create and establish performance analytics that will drive effective and efficient responses, that will improve the level of service, and will measure system performances. We want to also review our annual training program and confirm that our department training meets state and national standards. This next slide is a breakdown of the performance measures, but tonight, with 10 minutes, there's no way I can get in and detail it all. But let me summarize it for you.
We can schedule you another presentation later too.
Let me summarize what this means. Time matters. Successful outcomes deteriorate with increased response times. Moving on to quarter one accomplishments. We developed and implement a sustainable fire inspection program. We've determined that there's 1,100 City of Anacortes businesses. And what we elected to do was to look at those businesses, ensure that the fire department has a complete list, that they are documented within our reporting program, evaluate high versus low risk occupancies, and simple versus complex inspections. We ended up providing staff with 200 fire inspections to complete each quarter. So we know that that's 800 through the first year, and then move on into the second year with the remainder of those, and then determine how best to approach it there forward. Some of our considerations for electing to only address 800 this year was the other competing interests in the fire department. We have new staff coming on, and it's important that we continue to train our new staff. So competing time was an issue for us to scale it back a little bit and to do it over 2 years. We successfully implemented the fire reporting program NEARS. NEARS is the new fire reporting program that is a national program. We created the performance measures for INFRS. INFRS is the old plan, and so we have to look back and see what we did in previous years and to evaluate how we improve into the future. Additional accomplishments, we developed and implemented the battalion chief position. This provides daily operational supervision and immediate fire ground command, increasing availability for imminent rescue. We've completed the hiring process for the open firefighter positions funded by the SAFER grant. We have received and made ready 2 new paramedic units and received them in January, and within 30 days had them on the road for the medics, which is a great accomplishment for both the fire department and the shop making that happen. We also completed the GEMT submission process. I had worked on this with Melinda in finance, who was instrumental in completing this process. Next steps for 2026. We're going to look at our training program. We're going to examine it. We're going to determine, hey, what is required? What is considered an industry standard? What is unique to Anacortes just because of our isolation away from the central Skagit area? And what needs or must be addressed, for example, as a result of the QA process? We want to develop a detailed, searchable document to track the expenses of our training. We are providing an in-house lateral fire academy, which, by the way, started today. 3 new lateral firefighters joined our department today. We have to complete an annual report, and we're going to complete the promotional process, which Kendall has already mentioned. Some additional steps. We wanted to develop a quality assurance program for the new NEARS, which is the fire reporting program. We want to develop a detailed document to track actual overtime costs and be able to look at our expenditures and our incomes. We want to develop response time analytics for the new fire reporting program NEARS. We're going to continue to update department policies, an ongoing process. And we look forward to the design and the make ready of the new fireboat. And we we are intending for a pre-build meeting in July or August of this year. Here's some analytics. The following slides will have a few of our data analytics that we're currently using to track our progress and our incidents over time. While basic in nature, we'll continue to build upon our performance measures, data that will drive decision making. If I just look at this one and point out what we're looking at, the top left are the incidents, and if I look at the multiple points of data, I believe and can confidently say that this is a trend, and the trend is the call volume increasing. Last year, the call volume increased to 5,018 calls, which we determined were a 5.2% increase or 246 incidents. This next analytic just lets us know when calls come in. Top left, it's by the hour of the day, starting at midnight. In the center is incident by days of the week, and the bottom right is incidents by month. And so just an indication that calls keep coming in day and night, every day of the week, every month of the year, And our firefighters are always ready to respond to the 911 calls that come into the city of Anacortes. This next slide just shows information from the NEARS report, and it identifies just different call types. For example, fires, EMS rescue, hazardous conditions, service calls, and then totals out nearly perfectly at 517. This is an EMS analytic, and it details the number of patient contacts. And that's important too, because with fire, we also have EMS. And if you look at the bar graph on the left-hand side, you can see that the actual patient contacts continue to grow. What's important to us also is that we look at the level of service that we deliver. And that's the pie chart on the right. And 59% of the time, we're delivering advanced life support, and 41% of the time we're delivering basic life support. The pie chart to the bottom right is ultimately just demonstrates where we transport those patients. And a key analytic for us is of patient contacts, we transport 60% of those patients. And that is a relatively high number compared to other agencies. This analytic, we could start just geeking out on a little bit, and it starts to get into mining what we end up mining the fire department's responses. This overlapping or concurrent means the number of calls that are going on at the same time. For example, one call is called, and then a second incident comes in. And then at times a third incident comes in, all within the same amount of time. So we have multiple units out on the road at the same time. If you look at the trend, and I'm looking at the top left, for example, the number of incidents in 2025 that were going on at the same time were 2,060 of the 5,018. The percentage of calls that overlap have continuously increased to now at 41%. That's significant. And it's significant because it has a concentrated demand on our resources. This is also another role for our newly implemented battalion chief, because the battalion chief will continue to manage the status system management of our system. They'll determine if units can break free or if they can move people around. That will be their ongoing job throughout the day. I was sort of hoping that the time would be up by now, but so here's our budget. And I guess the first thing I would look at is the utilization, and I see the fire department budget at 22%. I think that's pretty good. But then what are the next things I would look for? I want to look at what utilization numbers are higher, and what does that mean? Can I turn that trend around, or is it going to continue through the rest of the year? For example, I'll look at insurance here. I'll point it out. Ouch. Well, I think with a little bit of investigation, I'm assuming that our insurance renewal is a one-time, an annual renewal, and unfortunately, it just happens at the first quarter of the year. If we look at professional services, 27%. This line item is made up of multiple different contracts that provide services to us, our report writing program, our CAD system, and our CAD connections. And some of those renewals are annual and some of them are monthly. So that's why the numbers are a little off. The taxes, I'll just go right on past that one. Here, overtime. Overtime, this is an interesting line to get into. And I'd like to spend a second or two, if possible, with that. It presents at 50% utilization. And so the overtime is broken down into multiple additional lines. For example, we had a cash out vacation for a previous employee that ended up being attributed to this overtime. We have operational expenses, and let me explain a little further. When we started January 1, 2026, we were one firefighter down. So what that means and how that translates out into cost is we had one shift with one less firefighter. Therefore, every time that firefighter was up on the schedule, or that person would be responsible for that spot on the schedule, because they were vacant, we would have to bring somebody in off duty to make up the minimum staffing, and that would cost overtime. It doesn't cost overtime every time, but sometimes it does. So there's anticipated sick leave use, and I need to get together with finance to determine if we have an anticipated sick leave use, maybe 5%, maybe 7.5%. I'm unsure of that. But there are unanticipated sick leave uses that are extended times off. For example, this year, we have already had 3 babies. Firefighters in the department have had babies, 3 babies. Okay. Now they're future little taxpayers, so it's not, there is a sliver of hope in all of this. But those 3 fathers, there are 3 firefighters that are on shifts. Now they're vacant. And so when their shifts would come up, if we don't have enough people to cover those space, then we have to bring somebody in on overtime to cover that spot, to maintain our minimum staffing. We also had 2 medical extended time off, and with those firefighters missing, the same story. Occasionally, we had to cover them with overtime. Training is another expense of overtime. Okay, so we have operations training, and I'll give you a few examples: live fire training, rope rescue training, water rescue, and that's both marine and lake, trail rescue training. They're all multi-company trainings. So we need all of the companies together to actually provide this training and for them to interact together, because that's how they would actually run a call. They all are working together. To try to accomplish that on shift doesn't work, because the companies continually get called out. And when they get called out, that's disruptive, and we can't complete the training. So we perform that training off duty. Now, for example, let me just use rope rescue. Rope rescue, they have assignments that they have to complete prior to that day, remembering how to tie knots, how to put together systems. And they complete all of that before the actual rope rescue drill. A couple of weeks ago, I ended up at Mount Erie just to check out what these guys were doing. And I had gone and I'd looked over that south face, because that's a lot of times where we end up going to rescue people. And I couldn't see them, and I walked around a little bit and couldn't find them. And so then I walked back and I happened to see the team lead. And I said, where are you guys? And he says, well, we're over here. And so I thought, well, you guys always tell me that you practice where you play. So why would you be over here? And he says, well, I can accomplish everything we want to do like we would do it over here on this south face. But this face is only 20 to 25 feet. That means I have more repetitions. That means we get more bang for our buck. And I think that is great that our staff do that. EMS OTEP. Sometimes the EMS OTEP that's the ongoing training for paramedics and EMTs. It'll be mixed. Sometimes it's on duty, sometimes it's off. When it's off duty, it's an overtime cost. There are other classes that the paramedics need to take through their certification cycles, ACLS, PALS, difficult airway, and those classes all come at a cost of overtime. So we move on to education. The OTEP program, our medics and our EMTs provide ongoing training for the other fire departments surrounding us, the fire departments that we respond to as medics. And I think that's appropriate because our medics get to see, our medics and our EMT get to interact with the staff and they get to see where the weaknesses are. And so they are naturally the best educators. Now, that comes at an overtime cost and is accounted for in this line item. However, through a separate educational contract with EMS, we receive reimbursement for that overtime, and that we should see in an income document. A second training we have is FOTS, and this is first on the scene, is high school training. And some of our staff are coaches up at the high school, and they were questioned, hey, how come the firefighters don't do the CPR training for our students? And she came back to the fire department, talked to everybody and said, why are we not doing this? We are the natural educators. We perform this all the time. And so we set about becoming educated and developing, well, we didn't develop, but we ended up going to the class that was developed by Skagit EMS. So this year was the first academic year that we've participated, and we were able to provide training for 95 students, CPR, AED, recovery position, EpiPen, Narcan administration, and tourniquet application. This is all overtime that appears in this line item on our budget. However, we are also reimbursed for this through Skagit EMS, and that should be in our income bracket. We also provide city, all of our city employees, all 220 city employees with CPR training. Included in that also is the Port of Anacortes. Their employees come across and participate as well. So our firefighters and paramedics are teaching high performance CPR to both the City of Anacortes employees and to the Port of Anacortes employees. This comes at an overtime cost. It is represented in this line, and we're not reimbursed for that. So one last comment just before I finish. You know, I look at this, the salary and wages, and I see this is the budget. 1% of that is close to 50,000. I multiply that by 2 to make up the 25%. We would be able to reduce that down to close to 25%. Anyway, this data field is very new to me, as in Friday. I saw it Friday for the first time. So I am continuing to learn about the fields, and I don't feel as if I'm qualified to give a lot of information on this. Over the next couple of days, I will learn that. And so the next time, if you ask, I will be able to answer your question.
And that's great. We have recently introduced this revenue tracking concept, and it is, I think, relatively new to all departments. And so it's definitely going to be an area of emphasis, but it's not necessarily one that everybody has spent a lot of time on so far.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Walters.
You need not ask for permission to speak.
It's just so
in our work session format. You may
Yo, Ryan,
jump right in.
Question is the numbers that we're getting tonight, are they like the spend numbers? Is that all the way through March?
Yes, this should be all the way through March.
Sorry.
Except that Mr. Hoagland is approaching the podium.
Sorry. Yeah, so the expenditure data is through March. The revenue data is through March with the exception of utility billing, which is January, February.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, members of the audience. Our presentation is so exciting that the Parks Department did fireworks for us. So, in my opinion, the most noticeable accomplishment you'll see tonight from the police department is our staffing level, as this impacts many of the other key performance indicators that you're going to see in our slides tonight. So as of December 2025, we were staffed at 32. And that is higher than we have been in the history of our agency. Our strategic plan accomplishments, which our strategic plan runs through 2029.
Chief, you're not advancing the slides, but I think you're. Yeah, there you go.
So our strategic plan runs through 2029. And many of those items we've already accomplished. So our digital evidence tracking module, which was highly recommended by the state auditors, as well as our accreditation inspectors. I had mentioned that to you previously when that item was before you for approval for us to obtain. We have since customized our home screen and have begun training for our staff, and that will be deployed later this year. We're also underway with work for our 2027 accreditation inspection, where we'll be evaluated on 147 different standards as they apply to best practices in law enforcement. Our preventative efforts to steer youth away from involvement in the criminal justice system are supported by Council's continued funding of our school resource program. And as you'll see in the photo there, Officer Kellington is administering field sobriety tests to students wearing the DUI goggles. So they have the feeling of being impaired and the impact of impairment on safe driving. His work also was included many presentations at the middle school, high school, presence at athletic events and dances to prevent any issues when we're hosting events with neighboring schools. As we know, the Tiger Hawk Challenge can become quite contentious. Our current staffing levels also are projecting Officer Kellington's presence in the forest lands this year, which I know will be appreciated by the Parks Department. We look forward to being a presence in the forest lands when those are at the highest point of utilization throughout the year. Our active threat training continues. We are leading the efforts in the Skagit Island County region as the agency that has been able to continue that progress to the next level. We're now working with our fire partners to integrate medics into our response into these potential dangerous situations and warm zones, as we call them, where there is potential for an active threat to still be occurring, but allowing us to get medical aid to those individuals that need it. As Chief McDonald said, in those situations, minutes matter. And so getting that medical treatment to those individuals sooner before the threat is completely under control allows us to potentially save more lives. We have newly minted bike patrol training instructor, which allows us to train new officers in bike patrol and an increased presence in the more densely populated areas of town, increased presence with our downtown business owners, and we project those folks will be ready to go by this summer when our tourism season at its peak. And of course, we replaced our beloved T-Bone with a new, very capable police dog that is already out detecting drugs. And as of last week, tracked down our first wanted individual here in town that fled from our officers during an attempted arrest. And had it not been for our new canine, we would not have located that individual and gotten him off the streets. One of the things that I was tasked with as a captain when I took that position in 2018 was managing our training budget. And at that time, I implemented a strategy to stretch our training money as far as we possibly could. That resulted in us sending instructors to be subject matter experts instead of sending multiple students off to training somewhere in King County or somewhere else in the state. And we have developed quite a robust stable of instructors now that are very capable. Pursuant to the mayor's executive order, our efforts on that, we are doubling down. We're investing in our own subject matter experts, conserving by using those in-house instructors and not having to incur travel costs, overnight per diems, hotel costs, and saving on tuition. And because we have that capability, we are reforming how we're delivering our training to be most cost effective. I mentioned earlier that our staffing levels impacted other key performance indicators. And you'll see a graph that shows our self-generated calls for service through Q1 each of the last 5 years. The dramatic increase that you see this year directly correlates to the increased staffing levels that we have, at least 1 to 2 officers on each shift, over and above what we had previously. The increased self-generated calls are over and above the 911 calls for service that we're receiving from our community. These are incidents that the officer observed on their own and took the initiative to intervene in that situation to stop the crime from happening, to prevent the crime from happening, or to increase the level of public safety we're able to offer. This is our self-generated traffic enforcement calls. These are all criminal traffic in nature. So this would include suspended drivers, DUIs, reckless driving. Taking action for these individuals increases safety on the roadways for motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians.
Chief, would you please, when you say self-generated, would you sort of explain what that means? I know you're giving a lot of detail about what are self-generated. I'm not really clear on what it means self-generated. Is it that the officer sees something and goes after it?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
These are calls for service that are assigned case numbers. When the officer calls the dispatcher on the radio and says, I'll be stopping this vehicle that results in a DUI arrest, we're generating a case number that the officer observed on their own. We received no 911 calls for that incident. And it had not been for the officer there to witness it, we would not have been able to intervene in that situation. So moving to our budget tables, even with line item reductions in multiple categories across our budget, our department's on pace to be at or below our budget at year end. A couple key points that I would note for you. You'll see our small tools and equipment line item is at 34%. That is including our upgrading for the TASER platform that council approved end of last year. That was a planned expense that was budgeted. We've received that equipment. We have scheduled the training, and those are in process to be deployed for our staff. All the other categories across the board, except for our ER&R and insurance, are under budget. Those are items that are out of my control, and our budget or our insurance, I believe, is paid at the beginning of the year. So that would reflect we've already utilized 100% of that line item. Moving to our revenue coming in, I would point out to you that our actual traffic infraction penalties coming in versus the projected We're already at 47% of what was projected to bring in. And that is in direct correlation again to our staffing levels, having the additional officers on each shift. The first quarter of 2025, we recorded 690 infractions for the year of 2025. The first quarter alone of 2026, we were at 268. So we're currently on pace to be an increase of 42% over last year for the traffic infractions.
Excuse me, Chief. For the line for law enforcement services, is that when we actually bill for services like for Oyster Run, things like that? Or do you know what that line item?
That would also include if the refinery contracts with us to provide traffic control for one of their shutdowns, or we're providing a officer to the high school football game in addition to Officer Kellington. Those are usually a 2-officer detail. So those are billed to the entity that's asking us for the presence, and that's the money we're bringing in.
It's certainly not something that you'd expect to go linear evenly across the year. So thank you.
Yeah, the other item that appears low is the money coming in from the Washington State Traffic Safety Commission. And the majority of those events are later in the year, and that's our traffic safety emphasis, where the State Traffic Safety Commission is reimbursing us for any overtime costs that we put out. Many of those events, like I said, are later in the year. It's Memorial Day, Labor Day, impaired driving emphasis, Halloween. There's impaired driving emphasis across the holidays. The Oyster Run is one of the weekends that they target. So all of those reimbursements that we receive from the state would be into that category. And the vast majority of them are in the second half of the year.
That traffic infraction revenue is not an insignificant amount as budgeted, but if you can double it and double public safety at the same time, in my mind, that's a win-win.
Agreed.
So we are not quite halfway through the slide deck.
Did you want an intermission?
We'll go ahead and skip the library tonight because library director was unable to be here, and we'll catch him up next week. But I might ask everybody to pick up the pace just a little bit.
Happy
just
to.
a little.
Happy
Get all
to.
your content.
Strategic goals for the museum: stewardship and exhibition of collections, local audience and visitor engagement, staffing and programming alignment, facilities capacity and enhancement projects. I'll say that our visitation was up first quarter of from 978 in 2025 to 1318 in 2026, attributable in part to the new music exhibit and also to increased visitation at the Maritime Heritage Center. We are always getting new things into the museum, new artifacts, and that's ongoing work with our Museum Advisory Board and staff. We display those online, and often because we have such a extensive online catalog, we receive new offers of donated items because people see what we're doing and they say, that's where I want my Anacortes significant artifact to go, to the Anacortes Museum. Things we did in the first quarter were Black History presentation. We supported International Women's Day exhibit panels. We did a marine supply tour with our preservation board and planning department staff. And we've been working with the port on a centennial video project for them. We hosted with the library a book event on local history, gave some talks at Kiwanis, working with sign committee with the Samish Indian Nation and Parks and Port. We developed a museum collections plan so we could prioritize our plans in the coming years. And we began doing tours with American Cruise Lines, and then the regular mural work. And
Upcoming in 2026, in the immediate weeks, we are doing a historical cruise around Fidalgo Island. This is a benefit for our museum foundation and a good education opportunity. We're doing a Samish music event at the museum on the Thursday, the 23rd at 5 p.m. The public is welcome, and we're participating in Walk Fest in May. Later in 2026, you can see a list of things. We decided, and with help from legal department, to respond to requests from American Cruise Lines to open our facility and participate in their local loop, to be trying to build that that local loop so that people stay in town and lean into our role in the tourist industry. And the rest of the items you can see. In terms of conserving and reforming and investing, I show this slide of our current org chart and our org chart from last year. We're conserving by working with 5 people on staff instead of 9 as we did last year. And we've reduced our hours and days somewhat so that we can align our staffing with our programming. We're in pursuit of the grants that we can achieve, and as I mentioned, that cruise leaning into the cruise line visits. So the budget looks good. The note is that our insurance line, which sticks out, is pending a budget update, which will restore the insurance line balance. And we have the contributions and donations is related to our museum storage and workshop building capital project, which is currently in a planning and permit phase. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Lunsford, just one quick comment. Your Black History Month presentation was honestly one of the best that I've ever seen, not only here, but in other cities. It was superb, and it referenced in many ways the history, multi-ethnic history of Anacortes. It was truly beautiful, and it's one of the things that I think that we should show again. I think it was wonderful, and so thank you. I didn't get a chance to say that then, but I wanted you to know that it really was one of the best I have ever seen.
It was an honor to participate in that
Yep.
great event, and I appreciated your presence there too. I'll just
you.
forward through the library slides now.
Yeah, if you could hit 95 and press enter. Perfect. Thank you.
Evening, council, members of the public, Mayor Walters. Here we go. This is what we do. No toddlers were hurt in the creation of the green spaghetti beard. They're guardians just outside the photo, so if they ate it, they're fine. This is what we do. About 120 youths participated in our sports and summer camps throughout the year. Upcoming, we have track and field is open for registration now. It starts next week. And then all of our summer camps, you can, as the mayor noted, you can register for those starting April 20th. Upcoming events on the 30th, you can catch a gigantic trout at Heart Lake if you are a child. Bark in the Park on the 13th of June, and Kids Are Best on the 11th of July. All those are free. 4th of July this year, we're asking you to register. That's free. We just want to make sure we have a contact person so we can talk with you about the importance of keeping the children safe. They might not have the best judgment as to running out into the streets to gather things. We want you to have good judgment and walk alongside your parade and hand things out in the bike path lanes. So registering helps us contact you to remind you of that and keep everything safe. And thanks again to the Port of Anacortes for helping us sponsor that 4th of July fireworks. And the Samish Nation has also donated $2,500 towards that. Goals for 2026, maintain our level of services at our downtown parks, ACFL, Senior Center, recreation programs, Grandview Cemetery and Washington Park. Work with Skagit County and area partners on sustainable meals programs for seniors after June 30th. As you know, that's when county stopping to do that. We had some good news today that we think we have a partner going forward, but they need to meet with us, and more on that later. So that's good news. Grant applications for Ship Harbor and Volunteer Park. Ship Harbor you've seen, Volunteer Park's coming to you in a week, and collaborating across departments on the A Avenue landfill as remedial investigation work begins this spring. More on that in just a second. Long-term strategic goals, providing infrastructure and opportunities for families to recreate year-round. We know that we'd like a place to escape the gray rain in the wintertime for families. We're working on that. Continue offering quality recreation programs at an affordable price for the local community. It's very important for us that everyone can afford to do what we offer, and are grateful to the Parks Foundation for helping us with scholarships if families cannot make it, even at our reduced prices. Find opportunities to build and maintain park infrastructure to keep up with growth, and continue the build out of the Guimas Channel Trail. Those are our long-term strategic goals. As the mayor noted, Dean Williamson, in his 20th year at Washington Park, was awarded the Mayor's Award of Merit, and our staff is important to everything we do every day. Okay, as mentioned, I'll skip through this one, but this is the senior center. We're working on lunches throughout the year, Meals on Wheels, congregate meals, very important to not only group activity, but just feeding those who are hungry in our community. So we have good news. More about that coming to you in the future. The Forest Lands Plan, can't get enough of that. It's coming to you next week. You'll get a matrix and the plan with revisions in it. I think about 176 to 79 responses with the comments that received that you'll have, noting where that stuff was added to the plan. So you can see the matrix, the comments, the action taken, and directions on where you can see that in the plan itself. And the Maritime Plaza moving along nicely down at the depot right next to the WT Preston. That should be completed. You'll see hopefully paving done there to the entrance next week, and then the pavers going in the week after that. Our goal is to be ready for the first day of the market. Fingers crossed. A lot depends on weather and everything, but that's our goal. And thanks to engineering, they're helping us throughout with that project, giving us great support. Columbariums, those are above ground niches that are in place at the cemetery. Next week, you'll see, thanks to our help from the legal department, ordinance to help us bring in both columbariums into the city and green burial. So we'll be having a conversation about that next week. Ben Root Skate Park, their bid documents are being formed right now, thanks to help from legal and engineering. And you should see those go out to bid soon, and a contract coming back to you hopefully in May with a construction timeline this summer. A Avenue landfill. The public should see some work being done on the remedial investigation work plan. So that would mean like drilling for groundwater wells. So we'll have to close the trail a day or two here and there, so the drill rig can get out there and drill the wells. And then you'll see sampling. That shouldn't disrupt the public, but if people see that, we're happy to tell people about that. Thanks to help from Public Works Solid Waste Division for helping to fund that. Heart Lake Shoreline Restoration, this is through a grant from the state and matching funds through the Conservation Easement Program and private funds. Conservation Easement Program interest earnings. So the principal remains intact. Earnings are being spent from the interest. And you should see us coming, we're in the gathering information, critical areas, and engineering, and then we'll come back for permitting where the public can have a chance to comment on that. Senior Center activity funding from the foundation. Thanks to their generosity, you'll see us moving a few offices around to make room for more classes and consolidating the staff into a different area just to give that room where you see Carl and Amanda now will become a classroom. And that's, again, thanks to the generous donations from the foundation. Conserve, Reform, Invest. So we are working with organizations like the foundation and the Senior Center Foundation to support our maintenance project expenses. They are helping us pay for things like gravel, things like equipment that we need to use to do work in the parks, because we don't have money in our budget. So in the long term, it's not sustainable, but in the short term, it's helping us quite a bit. We're reducing our use of fertilizer is just one example. We removed one FTE from our budget, and we're collaborating with our partners, as mentioned previously, for the funding of the fireworks display. And then we are updating our forest plan with in-house staff. A lot of the work that we do across our things, our projects are all in-house just to save money and we can do it. So we are looking for more grant opportunities, as you'll see next week and have seen, and we are increasing fees to cover the cost of our staffing, places like Grandview Cemetery, Washington Park, and our field use rentals. In our budget, so overall in our 101, our main fund, we are at 15%. We're on track. Maintenance, as I said, is coming from private donations. Funds for equipment and such, funding from our staff reserves, and in the, I'll call attention to the professional services line item, that's at 33% right there. And that's a lot of pass through. So say the contract for the fireworks, foundation improvements pass through there. And so those will be reimbursed. The interlocal we have with the school district will not be reimbursed. Revenue status, we're doing pretty good at 22 and 23% respectively. And generally our highest quarters of revenue are quarter 2 and 3. You know, people get out and they want to do things. Quarter 1's a little slower. At the cemetery, we are right on target for quarter 1. Staff there is also coming from revenue funds. And then we are at 41% at cemetery services, thanks to the increases that we were able to do to take care of our staffing costs. That's it.
One last thing, every time I see the insurance, I see 100%, and it's sort of stunning, but that's the reason it's 100% is that we're paying at the first part of the year for the entire year.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Young. Right. Yep.
We'll try to de-emphasize that in quarter 2's presentations. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the public. I'm John Coleman, Director of the Planning Community Economic Development Department. And this past year, we did some stuff, and next year we're going to do some more stuff. Do you have any questions? I know we're trying to cut time here a little. Is that too brief?
Droll, very droll. Proceed with the slide.
Deep into a long night, so I was try to get the blood flowing a little here. In the PCED, we've got 3.5 departments. We obviously have the planning and the building department. I think most people know what those are. We also have economic development, and then we have Stephanie that does a whole bunch of other stuff like LTAC and event planning and the special events, I should say, the community development block grant and other community services. So like that's kind of 1.5 over in that end over there. So and then in planning and building, that they also kind of combine a little bit to be part of our permitting center. And so the permitting center extends beyond even the planning and community development into public works and other departments, including fire. And the reason I bring this up is obviously there's a little bit of an emphasis on permitting right now, as you've probably heard. So that's where I'm going to kind of talk mostly about in this 9.5 minutes I have left. So we were asked, what are our vision statements and priority goals? So here you go: customer service, action. That's not a typo. That's education and action all rolled into one. And permitting, compliance, economic development. What have we been able to achieve so far this year? Largely, we've been working on our permitting process improvements. We have the number of permits we've received have been down, and I'm going to be talking about some of that in a bit here. But we've been working on process improvements after doing the matrix study in 2025. So we've been implementing the recommendations. That process is led by Rob Frisinger, who is our building official and kind of ad hoc ruler of the permitting department. And he's been authorized to kind of work through all the departments to keep everybody moving if he sees that there's any problems. Grace is also a big part of the permitting, the planning part of that. So they've been making updates to to our SmartGov system on our internal side, getting it all in shape and working well. And it was been a slow, drawn out process, and it's working really well now. So they've made enough internal improvements that we're starting to work on the external improvements, such as, you know, user interface and how it looks, how it interacts with people when they submit their permits through our SmartGov portal. Right now, we're working on checklists for various permits, so it'll be very clear what people need to submit instead of just going through the steps that the software provides you. You'll have some kind of instructions to go along with that. We're also working on standard operating procedures for each permit type, so everybody in the department knows how to process each permit and whose roles are who has a role in each of them and where that fits in. So some of the smaller things we've done is we've converted small permits such as re-roofs, solar, mechanical, plumbing permits to an automated approval. So when someone submits through the SmartGov portal, it actually doesn't touch any staff members. These are things that don't have plans that need to be reviewed. So they can just submit their plans and pay, and they'll be issued their permit, and then they'll be able to schedule their inspections. And I'd like to point out, I mentioned that permits have been down, but we've also done a lot of work and caught up. So there is not a permit backlog in our office right now. So while we're talking about permitting, one of the main things that we can point to is housing units. So, we receive permits for all types of things beyond that don't include housing units, but housing units is one of the main measures that we use to see what's going on. Plus, we have a lot of interest in housing and housing affordability in this community. So if you look here, this explains this chart, there's graph, I should say, talks about the types of permits issued and the number of them, showing them over the years. And while it doesn't show the exact number, the line on the left shows the general area. And you can see there was a high point in 21, 22, and then things have gone way down. Received far fewer permits starting in 23, 24, and continued into 25. And while I did not mention in that previous chart the numbers, this one does say the number of housing units that we've received. These are actual issued for all of these. It's not just permits received, it's for issued. So those are the numbers, and that looks very similar to this chart. This is spread all the way from 2006. And so this is a similar time frame in that. So those waves should look the same.
John, are these orange lines just averages across that time period?
And the orange line that bifurcates the page is an average. So average of roughly 79 permits per year. And we're below that currently. This compares the Anacortes housing starts compared to the Skagit County. And you can see, while there's not perfectly aligned, the general movement is the same between these two lines. This is a really interesting. This shows interest rates inverted. So where the higher the interest rate is at the bottom and the lower the interest rate, as you approach near zero, is at the top. So when you see that interest rates are high, then you'll see that permits are low, and that these two lines follow with the exception of 2005 to 2007, these lines follow very similarly. And that's just, so this is to indicate that the number of housing units that we're seeing submitted in permits is completely related to the number of, or to the interest rates. So that brings us to what are we doing in 2026? So last week, the mayor in his speech mentioned that he was issuing an executive order. That was Executive Order 2026-02, which addresses permit streamlining. I spoke to the planning committee today about that, and there's lots of, and the mayor mentioned it as well. That puts an emphasis for the next 3 months for the planning department to be working on improving permitting systems and doing certain things to make permitting a little easier. I don't have time to go into that in my remaining 2 minutes now. And so that's really one of the big pushes that we have. That's going to require kind of a sprint in our department to be working on these things, which is ideal timing while we're not receiving that many residential building permits. So hopefully we can get a lot done on that, and well, we fully intend to. Other things that we have going on in our department is working on the event facility, the joint with the port. And you can see I've tried to incorporate the mayor's reform invest into each of these. So the permit processing, well, we're reforming the process, and well, it's going to take a little bit of investment to do so. The event facility is a true investment in capital funds in order to create an event facility that will then generate more economic activity and tourism in the area, which is really important to our finance director. The Fidalgo Bay DNR lease area, that's also a project where we're expecting some reformation and possibly some investment into our facilities down there in order to recuperate more money from the people that use it and make it a better area that is better to use, and just create a more efficient system for people that are leasing areas from us in that DNR lease area. We're also working on coming towards the completion of the downtown streetscapes plan, again, an investment where the city has spent several tens of thousands of dollars on that plan. And so we can use that to do some revitalization or improvements, I should say, in our downtown area, again, to stimulate additional investment and tourism in that area. And then ongoing annual work, these are things that we're always doing: special events, community development block grant, lodging tax, and permitting, processing, and inspections. We also this year have to update our critical areas ordinance and our shoreline master program. Those two are going to be going with each other because there is a tie between them. We're also doing several changes to the AMC to improve permitting, as again, the executive order requested. Tomorrow, the Planning Commission, for example, is going to be reviewing vehicle boat sales and repair changes to the code to make it easier to have automotive repair in the industrial neighborhood, and also to clarify a lot of the inconsistencies to make sure that in particular, boat sales and boat repair are allowed in that area, because they are now, and that's really what that area is intended for. Is we want to make the code crystal clear that those are allowed to remain. And we also are spending a lot of effort helping the legal department as they defend our comprehensive plan and development regulations, and update from appeals, as well as our stormwater plan. Now, here's the budget part. We don't have any surprises. We're coming in either below or on budget for all of our expenditures, except for insurance. We're at 100% already. So hopefully that's not 400% by the end of the year, but not really sure how that one works. And then revenue status. Building permits are, like we're planning for a down year, but so we're still a little bit below. However, building permits are very cyclical. All it takes is for one apartment building, and now we're going to be at 150%. So we're not really too panicked about how this is going. We're a little bit behind, but it has been winter. and not exactly when people are intending to build. And interest rates are not going down yet. I don't know what if they are going to, or if they're going to go up. So to be determined, and that's a little bit beyond what we can handle in our department. And that is all I have for you tonight.
I just want to say one more thing, not about you, John, but this is about all the department heads. You know what would also be very helpful? You guys are so knowledgeable about the things that you're doing, and you tend to use acronyms as in any industry. And in your report, when you're using the acronyms, at least for the first time, put in parentheses or behind it so we know what the acronym is. It just helps us and it'll help the public. And I know it rolls off the tip of your tongue, but it just would be helpful. So if you do that, I'm happy.
All right. Good evening. Saving the best for last.
So before we get too far into Public Works, because you do have most of the slides, I guess, still left.
Yeah.
Does anybody need a break at this point? I mean, if any one of you needs a break, we could take 5 minutes. 1 minute stretch.
We're still planning to do like
Okay,
questions.
come back in no more than 2 minutes. Stand at ease.
Do it, Ryan. Do it.
All right, thank you for keeping that 2 minute break tomorrow more than 5 minutes. And we are back to the department that needs no introduction, the department with more than one department within it, the Public Works Department.
Yeah. Glad
Take
everyone's
this.
stretched because I got a lot to go with. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Yeah, Logan Lee, Public Works Director. Happy to give you an update on what we've been doing here in Public Works. We have 10 divisions, 75 people. So I'm going to try to touch on each of them a little bit and just let you know kind of what they're doing. But first, I'll show you our department strategic goals. And of course, our one of our main priorities is to preserve and enhance the reliability and resilience of all of our utilities. These are necessary services for the entire community. So being open and transparent, providing the services to them is vital, and we want to be able to be transparent with the community so that they know that they can rely on us, and we can provide water, sewer, stormwater, and solid waste services consistently throughout the year. And maybe most importantly is enhance and develop our staff, as we do have, in my opinion, like some of the most hardworking, knowledgeable people that I've ever worked with, and I feel very fortunate to represent them in this capacity. So we have a great team. Some of the ways that we kind of track our progress on those goals is through we have quite a few key metrics. Some of the highlights here of just the way we prioritize and goal, and give us a little insight on where we might need to focus more, show that we're improving over year, and just some ambitions to keep continuing to improve. So some highlights are like our fleet cost per mile. So our fleet does a really good job, fleet division, keeping track of all the costs that go into every repair that they do, and tracking how much we are saving and how much we can improve every year. So getting into each division, starting off with maybe the most reliable division is solid waste. No news is good news. They keep doing what they're doing week in, week out. One of the ways that they are trying to adhere to the mayor's executive order is by altering the way they order some new totes, and to save on shipping fees. And it's just little ways that add up to continue to save money for our city. So the fleet has also been focusing a lot on reducing costs on regular purchases they make throughout the year. Switching to a different tire brand has saved 5 to 10%. Also, there's another method that they can do to recap front tires on garbage trucks. The garbage trucks go through their tires really quickly, and so preserving the life and cutting down costs there is a big way. And just different purchases, buying in bulk, and reducing the costs where they can. Some of the new projects that they've done: 2 new ambulances this year, just some more implementation for efficiency throughout the shop, installing vacuum cleaners and pressure washers and the like. So also within operations, we have our street storm and sewer maintenance crews. Some of the cool projects that they've been doing: finally ripping out some really nasty roots on our avenue. The port was really thankful that this work we were finally able to get around to it. It's been a nuisance down there on our avenue by 4th Street. They also do a ton of work. April is a month where they're really tackling sidewalk cleanup. And so you can see some of the issues that we run into around town, where it gets overgrown over time, and how much of an improvement they can make really quickly. Also working with WashDOT and the school district to keep the signals for the different school features there on Oaks Avenue running, and we also adjusted the times for when they'd be flashing to more appropriately match the school hours. So also in support of the executive order, we've been really focusing on trying to keep a lot of work in-house, and doing what we can to not contract out work, to not hire other people, but to do it within our own crews. And we have a really talented maintenance crew that's taking on a lot of kind of odd jobs day to day to help cut down on those costs. We also have our facilities crew that does a lot of work throughout all the city facilities: roof repairs, new lights, new carpet, more roofs on. We have stations all over the city that need constant repairs. And so some of the stuff that they're also continuing to work on, the big one is obviously the police department HVAC system that they're putting a lot of effort into to keep that going on track so we can get our police officers some air conditioning this summer. The falconeering has continued to work, and we're excited to keep that going, as well as just some new carpet here and there, and keeping all the facilities looking nice. Again, similar to some of our other departments' facilities, is working on changing the way we order parts, bulk purchases, and also doing more work in-house. And so we have, again, we have a lot of talent in our department, and they're taking on a lot more out of the box work to try to save money and to try to cut down on costs. So next, our stormwater system, they are continually working on managing the entire system's infrastructure. So a lot of inspections, yearly inspections, that we have miles and miles of pipes and structures throughout the city that they have to maintain annually. And then a big part of their job is also to maintain our municipal stormwater permit, keeping us out of trouble with ecology. So there's a lot of work in that regard. And that's kind of a good example of just all the things that they have to pay attention to. And then as well as recording all the illicit discharges, we have a very ambitious goal to cut down illicit discharges to 0 per year. It may never happen, but that's our goal. I don't know why these keep clicking forward, but Stormwater also received a $120,000 grant from Ecology this year. Then they were able to put that towards our new street sweeper, and they just continue to do public education to cut down on illicit discharges and working on some of our end of the year annual stormwater plans, which you saw in the previous week. Our engineering department focusing on all the capital projects that we have year to year. We have a very extensive capital facilities plan, and they're off to a good start this year. Some of the projects that they're working on right now, our Q Avenue pedestrian crossing just kicked off this week or last week. Sorry. Some work at the water plant with our north line repair, and we have some big water line replacements that will begin this year. Jura Lane is already complete. Pedestrian crossing improvements. Then we have 2 really large projects coming up. The combined sewer overflow at the wastewater plant, I believe, starts at the end of this month, and then hopefully next winter we will start the Pass Lake 10-inch line that goes down to Deception Pass. Some big accomplishments for our engineering department this year. A huge one was final acceptance on the wastewater plant outfall project. That was a $20 million FEMA federally funded project that had a ton of moving parts. A big shout out to Jeff Beltramini, our lead senior engineering tech, for bringing that project home, because that was a huge endeavor. Some of the projects that we hope to get kicked off soon, 12th and Commercial is coming back at the end of this month. Reservoir design on 29th Street, which we presented a week ago. And then we also been helping assist parks with some of their various projects. And this month we submitted 2 new grant applications, and then next month we'll submit 2 more for some large scale projects that we hope to do in the future. Our GIS management division keeps one of our most probably vital resources in our department running. I can't state enough how important I think our GIS and cartograph program is. It houses all the assets throughout the city, and it's vital for all of our construction projects throughout the city. It's a really useful tool for day-to-day maintenance to long-term planning. What's that banner? Wastewater plant. They work hard in every day to continue to keep that plant running. Some notable things that they've been doing are one cool one is the annual incinerator shutdown. So for 2 weeks they shut down the incinerator, so there's no biosolids are being handled, and it's a really well orchestrated event where they do all the maintenance on the incinerator in basically a 1-week period. So they plan for it for months to make sure that everything goes off seamlessly. In the plant's 30-year existence, that they have not had to truck out any biosolids. So they've been really successful each time they do it. The other big endeavor that the crew are working on is the biosolids alternative analysis, which we presented a few weeks back. We're hoping to get some feedback on a few surveys from council members. I won't call out any names, but a few you haven't done your surveys yet. But that'll be another really exciting project that we get to focus on in the years to come, about how we are going, what the future of our wastewater plant is and what the future of biosolids handling is. And a great breakdown of just how versatile the crew at the wastewater plant is. They do everything from electrical work, welding, instrument technicians, and they just do it all a lot. We also take great pride in our community outreach to let people know what goes on at that plant, because I think it's a very underappreciated thing that we have some hardworking people down there who do a lot to keep the plant going, and it's something that a lot of people I think overlook, that their plumbing continues to work well. So lastly, our water system, the water treatment plant produces 42 million gallons a year. It's a really, really impressive water plant, a really complex water plant, one of the more complex plants in the state. In the past few years, the city has put a lot of time and money into making the plant more resilient for potential climate issues, which I think really came to a head this last December when we had record level flooding on the Skagit River. So as a reminder that part of what makes the water plant really unique is that we pull water out of the river rather than out of underground reservoirs, and the river's always changing. It's right on the banks of the Skagit River, and to kind of put it in perspective, typically when the water plant pulls water out of the river, the turbidity is about a 10 on this turbidity scale, so we call it 10 NTU. And during December, during our record level flooding, it was at 1100. And so not a single time during that storm did the water plant ever have to cease operations. It continued to work efficiently throughout. And I think it's a really testament to the work that the city has done to implement just the safety features and additional work at the plant to keep it running at peak efficiency throughout what was a FEMA-rated disaster. So it's really impressive. The crew there was able to keep it going and provide water throughout. And it's also at the plant, they've been continuing to work on ways that we can look ahead, save money in repairing things before they become problems, and also making tweaks to the system. A great example of that is a slight modification to the backwashing process. I won't get into the operations too much, but you can see how just little changes can add up to millions of gallons of water saved, which can net a nice annual savings of up to almost $20,000. So just continue to refine those processes to try to cut expenses. Lastly, our water distribution team, who manages all the pipelines, all the water lines from the minute it leaves the plant in Mount Vernon to all the way to Anacortes and the whole network through town. These are the guys that will jump out in the middle of the night and repair your water line when something goes wrong. There's hundreds of miles of pipe throughout the city that they are responsible for keeping going, and they do a great job replacing pipes, being there when things go wrong, and doing what they can to do preventative maintenance to keep things running. One of the big projects they were able to do at the beginning of this year was installing some deep wells for cathodic protection. Again, I won't get into the science of it, but it's if I remember right, 85-foot deep wells that they install to help reduce corrosion and ensure that our pipelines last as long as we can, and that we're protecting our investment and achieving a reliable water source. Also, we have a robust water. Water takes a lot of maintenance. It takes a lot of time to keep it running clean. This is water that our whole city drinks, and it's vital to the health of the city. So we want to make sure that our water is staying at top quality and as good as it can be. And water doesn't do well when it sits stagnant. So every year our team goes out and flushes the entire system So they began doing that this month. Notices go out, and it's a big job, and they keep it going, and it helps keep the water system pumping cleanly. There's a big effort to continue to maintain and replace some of the pressure reducing valves throughout the city. Our system is rather unique because of the elevation. We have significant elevation change here on Fidalgo Island, as well as a very high service pump in order to pump the water all the way from Mount Vernon to here. So it creates a lot of different pressure variations. A foot of elevation can change the pressure in your pipe by about 2.3 psi per foot of elevation change. So you can quickly overload house plumbing if you don't have these valves in place to separate the pressure zones. So that normal house, you want between 20 and 30 psi. So you can see how we could without having these reduction valves, it would be bad for people's plumbing systems. So they're an important thing to keep around. It really helps system out. So finally, into our budgets for street construction, we're on pace there. The travel and training at 56%, but again, that's a very small line item. So that's kind of a one-time purchase. We don't do a lot of travel and training out of there. Our street maintenance, similar story. We're close to that 25% mark throughout. A notable one is our professional services is high. There is some carryover from projects initiated last year, as well as some, as I mentioned before, we're doing 4 pretty intensive grant applications currently, and so we've used some outside help to make those applications as competitive as possible. So a lot of our professional services are kind of front loaded in that way. Once we're done with these grant applications, that's it for the year. Equipment rental, similar story, 25% kind of throughout. Solid waste, again, right on target, and besides the insurance, but that seems to be popping up for everybody. Wastewater, again, and I believe Steve mentioned that this is only for the first 2 months. So it's we don't expect to quite see the full 25%. So I believe we're on track. Also, wastewater as well as water will fluctuate more during the higher water demand months. So we expect to see more revenue during the summer. Or sorry, we're not on revenue yet. We're still on expenses. Sorry. But it is again under 25% for budget utilization for stormwater. And then water, same story. We're sitting pretty well there. We've done a lot to cut costs and backlog stuff. So now for the revenue, solid waste is pretty solid story, and we're at 25%. Wastewater this is kind of where I meant to mention it before, where we're a little shy of that 25%, but the higher water demand months will increase that revenue, similar to what you'll see in water. Stormwater above 20%, 25%, doing well. And then water, of course, which we're very close to that. But as I said, during the summer, where the water demand peaks, we'll see increased revenue in quarter 2, quarter 3. So that is all I have. So.
Thank you. Please forgive me for doubting how quickly you could move through the remainder of those slides. All right, council, I would propose that we group your questions together so that we can limit the amount of popping up and down at the podium that department heads might need to do. And I know Public Works already left the podium, but since that's top of mind, maybe we should do Public Works questions first. Does anybody have any Public Works questions? If so,
I do.
We'll shout them out.
I just have one. So with the water slide 162, with the water main flushing, do we know yet if there's any kind of impact, or if there are going to be any changes, because we are already expecting a drought season, low snowpack? Does any authority have the power to tell us that we can't flush our water mains, or we?
I don't think anyone would tell us not to flush our water mains. I think that if anything, the Department of Health wants to see those mains flushed. But is it Am I speaking the right language? Our water system manager happens to be here, so.
Right, I'm
I'll
just curious, like if, because we're expecting quite a big drought, low snowpack, if anything in the water area, specifically the mains will be affected at all.
Yeah, 10,000 cubic feet per second going down the river. Then we have to give out a warning of conservation. And then if it gets lower than 8,000 in 3 days, then we have to submit a requirement. And most likely it would hit irrigation systems and things like that. You're right, though, we would not flush. If
Okay.
we're asking the community, to conserve water, we're not just
We're
going to
not
waste
gonna,
it.
and I guess that was kind of what I was leading to is like, I'm pretty sure we're gonna be under a pretty strict conserve. So I would be interested, like, have we flushed the water mains every year last year? Did we do all of them? Or are they on a schedule or like?
No, we actually just started this program. We got engineers to design what we actually needed to do, where we needed to pull the water from, how many feet per second we needed to run through the pipes. And we've kind of got a good game plan now. And with the tools and the extra staffing that we got, we can actually do a lot more focus on this UDF, unidirectional flushing is what they call it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Walters. I know I don't have to
Yep,
ask, but I
yep.
have one more question, so you might want to come back. Because Councilmember Fantini brought up the flushing. Every so often we'll hear complaints about discolored water coming through the pipes. Does this flushing have any connection? Can
That's
you explain
exactly
that?
why we are going to do it. Yes, because we've got a slight iron manganese and then a little bit of alum in the pipes that kind of coats the pipes. And the engineers had determined that 3 feet per second will scour the pipes enough to get the majority of it out of there.
Okay. And then,
we haven't done it in the past because we just haven't really known what the substance was.
that's helpful. And then should we be reminding, if we hear members of the public mention
Complain about
that?
it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What should they do? Just run their water? Is that going to happen for a period of time as the flushing?
Yeah, so we're going to be putting the signs up.
Okay.
And we're going to be notifying the neighborhoods, not door to door typically, but in the neighborhood on the streets. And then if they see us out there flushing, what we ask them to do, if they call in with a water quality complaint, then what we'll ask them to do is just run their cold water in their tub, because it doesn't have a little aerator screen on it, so it won't get plugged. So in their tub, biggest drain and cold water only, and it usually takes less than a minute. And they'll flush just their little 1-inch line that goes to their house, their service line to the house.
Is that a problem if you're not actively using water at the time of flushing though?
No, it's not.
So it's not going to affect everybody most of
That's
the time.
correct. Yeah, only if you're pulling at the time.
Yeah, Mayor Walters, this has been absolutely fantastic in the information we've gotten from each of the departments. I love it. I've been informed there are a plethora probably of questions that we all have for each of the departments. I would suggest to our beloved, wonderful mayor that maybe next time we split this into two, such that we have more time to dig a little deeper, because I think at the end of the day, what you guys have put forward have been a cut above. It also allows for us as council to be able to articulate to the public the work that we're doing as a city to not only save money, but the steps that we're taking to make life better. So I would love this and just suggest that we do a little less next time. Okay, thank you.
I was going to ask for your feedback in your one-on-ones, but
I'll wait.
any other questions for Public Works though? Jump in if you.
Just to talk about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Carolyn, this
Go ahead.
informal setting is.
Okay, maybe you should ask permission to speak.
You go ahead. I'm just gonna say, just a shout out, I think it's obvious, police, fire, people that come to mind that are, day-to-day heroes, but I think you make a really good point. There's a lot of unsung heroes on your teams that keep things going day to day. And I mentioned at another meeting recently, Marcia and I took a couple tours at the waste treatment facility and the water treatment plant. I'm just blown away. And just not only by what's accomplished there, but I think you highlighted a lot of the versatility of the team members and what they're willing to do. And they took a lot of pride in sharing that and showing that. And I just walked away from those two experiences and was just super proud of the city and the Public Works Department. And that's just a small segment of it, but you represent a great group there. And I thought you highlighted that part great because, yeah, might not be the flashiest thing to talk about, but yeah, when things aren't working, my God, I think that would be, we'd get more calls on any other issue almost. So thank you.
Yeah, both our plants are amazing. We have great crews there. And if you haven't, I think everyone up there has, but if you haven't, it's definitely a tour worth doing at both plants. So.
I'm just going to tag on to that a little bit and say the creativity and the resourcefulness of staff all the way around in all the departments and saving money and just being creative and resourceful is really exciting to see the results of everyone pulling together and like stepping up in a really awesome way. So thanks to everyone. And I just wanted to call out the fleet optimization. And in general, that just looks great to me because that's something that we've talked about for a long time in many different venues. And that's something that I hear about from constituents as well. So at some point, not tonight, I wouldn't mind having like even a little more information about what's been done there. Because what I see on slide number 136 is great. And I would just love more details about that as well at some point. So I just also want to just say again, thanks to everyone for all the work you put into this and all the work you do every single day.
And so in the next month, we're planning a presentation to council on the findings of that analysis, the fleet optimization. And department heads, feel free to key the slide number and hit enter when council members bring it up. Anything else for Public Works? No? All right. Shall we go in reverse alphabetical order? Anything else for planning? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, you have a mic there too, but my question is, first of all, I'm very excited about all of the changes, the executive order, the push, the 90-day push. I think it's all great. I do have a question about, we didn't see any baseline numbers. Like, for instance, and I'm not expecting you to give those to me right now because it's off the cuff. But what I would be curious to see as we're changing the permitting process and growing it is like, where are we at right now? Like or where have we been at the past year? Like if someone comes in and they want a single family residence permit, right? What's the baseline number for that? Is that turning around in 21 days, 24 days, 27 days? Again, you don't have to, I would, since we're doing such a push for improvement, it would be good to know where we're starting to see how well we improved. Do we have anything like that?
So it's yes and no. The data is not good, meaning like it's not very clean because as we've been making improvements to the SmartGov system, it used to be just like how long did a permit take? And then we've been refining it to how long is it? We've got to the point now we're tracking very regularly and accurately how long is it, in permitting's hands versus, then we sent out a review letter saying, please submit additional information. And then how long is it in the applicant's hands before they return it to us? We didn't have good tracking of that as the system wasn't implemented, but now we're getting much better numbers. So while we can get you numbers, whenever we look at it, we end up going, well, that doesn't seem right. And we go back through and we're like, yeah, it looks like somebody didn't look like the number, that time was tracked properly in those older permits. So.
But you feel like going forward, we're going to have kind of an idea of how long they're each.
I think we're at the point where now we're able to create a baseline.
Okay.
And with the permit timeline ordinance that you passed a couple of weeks ago, we'll also need that.
Okay.
Going forward.
Great. Thank you. That's all I had.
Anybody else with planning questions? No? How about parks questions?
Quick question for Parks. No, you don't. Is this really about, I noticed that now we're having people to register for the parade.
What slide number, Ms. Chiang?
Okay, that was slide number blah, 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 blah. Okay, you got it done. But yeah, just the idea that, people used to be able to just walk up and be in the parade. We no longer are doing that. Correct.
Correct. You're absolutely right.
And where
Slide 99.
Slide 99,
Yeah.
that's what I was about to say. Slide 99, it came to me. Yeah, no, so that's being pushed out throughout the city, blah, blah, blah. Okay,
We're asking, yes, we're asking for your help publicizing that. We're trying to get
Okay.
people to contact us. We need to know who they are so we can talk to them and encourage them to act safely during the parade. Most people do by and large. And
Right.
just again, walk down
Right.
the bike paths with
Right.
their
Yeah.
gifts to the community.
Okay.
And then asking parents to help us, give some candy to children. They're going to want to run and get it. So
Right.
just give it to them at the source. That's what we're asking for. And that
Yep.
just helps us talk to people about that.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thank you
yeah.
for pointing that
Okay.
out. That helps
Thank
us
you.
quite a bit. And it's free. Just sign up as free.
Okay.
Yes, my suggestion that we charge $100 fee was rejected.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe
But
just a
the
political
parade
candidate.
keeps getting bigger and bigger,
Yeah.
so it is pretty important to keep track. And we have people from outside the city that
Right.
participate in the parade who may not be familiar with it.
Yep.
Ms. Fantini, I spoke over you.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna say, maybe we don't charge for everybody, but maybe we charge for political candidates.
Okay, there could be some First Amendment problems with that, but thank you for the suggestion.
There you go.
Parks, any other parks questions?
I'm excited to hear more about the Meals on Wheels and
Oh, yeah.
what you got coming with that. So I know you don't have it today,
Yeah.
but that was encouraging at least.
All right, library will be next week. Any questions for museum?
Yes. Just basically, I love the idea of that tours with American Cruise Line and the local ability. I think just personally, I thought that the challenge was in where it was coming in and then also the time in downtown. I think in working to coordinate with the cruise line to try to maybe even they may want to come in on a different day. But even with yours in the museums, having that self tours, I've heard great things about it. So, how we market it, how we promote it will be, I think a big part of it. And so, maybe if we later at the port decide that they could come in, near where the orca whale is thing, but I'm just tossing out an idea, but I love it. And also tell us about the 18th again, the fundraiser cruise. Is it still open for people that may want to sort of participate?
Yes,
Is it already filled
yes,
up?
it is. The April 18th cruise is, still has space in it, whereas the August is sold out and the June is almost, so.
Wow.
And the weather's supposed
go?
to be nice on Saturday.
Where would we go, where would anyone, including myself and others, where would we go to find out about the cruise and try to get tickets?
Highland Adventures website.
So, okay, got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for museum? Moving on then, how about APD, police? Any questions for police?
Absolutely.
Don't make the police
Just
chief get
kidding.
up.
Yeah,
You can,
I'm just kidding. All right.
Okay, I just had, I think there is, an opportunity, I'm just curious on your opinion. I think that our parking code is excellent. Phenomenal even.
What?
The only issue I take with it is the first time offense fee of $10. I'm curious if you're finding a $10 first time offense as a deterrent for people to park there again, or if you're finding it as more of a, you mean I get to park here all day for $10?
First of all, I'll have a slide number 2 I put with that.
That's the only one I didn't put a slide in.
Second of all, to answer your question, I don't think that we've been able to contact individuals who have been cited for that type of feedback. Typically, they are paying their fines to the court clerk's office, and we don't get a lot of feedback on the back end.
And then just a question for the mayor. If we wanted to revisit changing that, could we?
Oh, yes. I think that there are multiple different things that we can do with the parking code there, including have differential fines for different areas. I think that $10 fine was especially low for targeting downtown business areas, but it could be higher or lower there, higher or lower in other parts of the city. And we'll be exploring options for doing quite a bit more with parking for presentation to you as part of the 2027 budget process. So I think now would be a great time to be assembling ideas for potential revisions to the parking code to visit in the fall.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Walters, I know you
Go
don't.
ahead.
I was just gonna start talking, but it's getting polite over here.
I know, right? Anyway, I appreciate the presentation. The one thing that I just wanted to kind of bring up again or bring up in another setting is I'm really happy that there's gonna be bike patrol. I'm excited to see that in the coming months as it warms up and it gets busier. I also think that we need to do some work on enforcement and safety when it comes to electric bikes and scooters on sidewalks and roads specifically. So hopefully that is either a public safety committee discussion or somewhere else, but it's getting scary to see kids with helmets that fall off as they're crossing random streets and things like that. So if you have any thoughts on that or.
You're slightly ahead of schedule. We can discuss that tomorrow at a public safety committee meeting.
Perfect.
There's some revisions potentially that we're looking at in the current code for motorized scooters and how we can address the concerns that you're talking about tonight with those revisions.
Cool.
One of the things I heard the most about last year.
Yeah. And I mean, I get it. An electric scooter and bikes are fun, but we also want people to be as safe as possible. So thank you.
Just a comment, Chief Wood. I was just encouraged by the amount of self-generated calls this year versus last year and being staffed the way you are. And just, I've certainly felt more of a presence too, just driving around, and it's nice that you're catching some stuff proactively, keeping the city safer.
That's one comment that I've consistently heard the last 6 months is, we're seeing police everywhere. And that's, thank you to our community for that supported the public safety levy, because that is the reason why we have that luxury currently.
I wanted to, one of the questions I have is about challenged students. We've got students that are, simply struggling for one reason or another, family events, and things. So, more recently, I was asked to attend a discussion about a student and what should or should not be taking place. This was a great student, but, parents, I understand, were substance abusing, but the student wasn't in this case. But the student was struggling at the same time. Brilliant student, but had been dropping down, and as a result, going from one STEM to another level of learning and the expectation. One of the things that I'm hoping that maybe we find a way, I always thought that, before we really penalize some students so severely that life changes for them and the trajectory that they're on really becomes clouded by the world and all the stuff that they're confronted. I would love at some point, maybe we find a way for them to become volunteers, maybe at the police department or one of these departments, such that they get to see crime, have structure, understand what this is all about. It is momentous in the sense that it really helps students to realize that there's a hierarchy, there's structure, and that there are wonderful people trying to fight those elements rather than not getting that side of it. So, and I want to do a shout out to John. I reached out to John about one of those students that was doing extraordinarily well. And he indicated that their volunteer program that they were having, it's just so good. And I told the grandparent who's raising the kid basically, and they were just so happy because, again, sometimes they didn't know what were available in the community. Although I know we put it out there, but there's just some families that are missing it in the cut because they're working so hard to survive. They don't have that time. So what I'm encouraging and what I appreciate is that, maybe that may be part of some type of whatever, even a ride on the scene. I just think that we can help a couple of kids, maybe not a lot, but at the end of the day, I think that hope that they will get from a structure, a police structure, and also just being in the middle of other people other than seeing what some parents are doing less than, I think is so hopeful. So I'm hoping that we can do more of that. And so I want to say thank you to you, John, for reaching out. I know they go through all the processes of determining whether or not this person will work here or not work there. The idea of them applying has already been um, encouraging. And I've taken it personally in the sense that, I'm trying to mentor where I can to help, all students reach out. So I applaud you guys for that piece of what you're doing, and I encourage you to expand it just a little bit.
Other questions of police? No? All right, let's go on to fire. Any questions for fire?
Mayor Walters. I'll say the mayor. Oh, hello, interim chief. I have a question. Maybe I'm the only one up here that has it about the overtime, because I see kind of a caution flag when I see that we are in March, those numbers are through March, and we're at 50% of our projected overtime for the year. Is that due to any I know you talked a little bit about the training and all of that, but I assume a lot of that happens all the time. So is this tracking like normally we would see overtime numbers? Has it been increased? I know that's probably a hard question for you.
It is a very hard question for me because I've been at the helm.
All of the week, yeah. No, or yeah.
So with my previous role, I had like 4 line items in the budget that I managed, and this was not one of them. But I will say that we are going to look at all of our overtime expenses, and we're going to look at, as I tried to line out operational ones, training ones, and set a dollar value on them so we can examine it at the end of the year and be accountable for overtime spending.
Okay. I would be curious to know too, just historically, where we've ended on those overtime numbers for the last couple of years.
Well, I look at
you don't have to give it to me right now.
I look at overtime spending for 2025 at 760,000 and 2024 at 587,000.
I would be interested in the same thing. But, again, I totally understand, when we look at staffing, what prior staffing was in relation to that overtime and what we have now by staffing in relation to overtime. I do think that, I know you guys are working hard, but I do think that we need to look harder at it and to see if the increase in staffing could have, or maybe possibly should have, reduced a bit of the overtime. I look forward to you being in the position to bring some information to us. But like my colleague here, I'm interested in those numbers at some point coming back so we can discuss it. I know the mayor's just getting his arms around this elephant, eating it at the whole time, but I think he's doing a good job. Don't get the big head. But I really do think he's doing a good job, but I would be interested in those numbers.
One other thing too, it does look like that I know over the last couple of years, we've really shifted to do a lot of in-house training versus, I think we did where we had 8 firefighters go through training here in Anacortes, and it looks like we're definitely saving some money on that strategy. So that is really good to see.
Chief, could I ask a much more prosaic question? If you go back to slide 55, I think. Can you just give us a little bit more understanding of what each of those definitions of calls means?
Sure. So the 100 value are structure fires or fires related inside a structure, outside a structure. Overpressurized, ruptured, explosion. I immediately didn't find that in the database know better what it is. Rescue and EMS are EMS incidents, hazardous conditions or hazmat conditions, gas spills, and things like that.
Okay.
Service calls or for example, we end up arriving on the scene and it's not it's not a fire, it's not electrical, it's some other issue that the resident was having and we resolved the issue for them. Good intent calls. The good intent calls can be anything from, for example, when a unit is canceled en route or canceled at the scene. For example, when medics end up going out to different incidents and maybe there's firefighters, EMTs on scene, and they are able to resolve the issue without them, then we'll cancel the medic. Okay. Patient may refuse EMS care. Basically, somebody else has called for EMS, and when the staff get in to the location with the patient, they are the person, because they're not technically a patient yet. They just say, "Hey, I didn't call you, and I don't want you." Third-party calling. And that's another example of third-party calling. Drive-by 911 calls. So we are inundated with people that are driving past and they say, "Hey, I think there's somebody unconscious on the front yard." And, staff get there and there's a gentleman sunning himself in his own home, enjoying the hot weather. So, and then another example of that would be arriving on scene and determining that this is not an emergency and it can be resolved in other ways. The 700, the false alarms, this can be a false alarm would be, for example, an automatic fire alarm. So a fire alarm both in a commercial structure or in a private residence, and the staff will go in and be able to determine, hey, the alarm's going off, but there's no emergency here. It could be, sometimes we have inexperienced chefs that are hanging out at home and they start a barbecue and it gets away from them. But when staff get there, it's just flame on from a barbecue. Steam release. There could be smoke detectors chirping or actually alerting, and it could be as simple as it needs a new battery, or we can't determine why the smoke detector went off, but a lot of times we'll get into how old are the smoke detectors and we'll talk them through, and typically it's a malfunctioning smoke detector. And then carbon monoxide alarms too. Sometimes they'll chirp, sometimes they'll go off, and our staff will come in. They'll come in with their equipment that reads the settings and the limits inside the house, and we'll be able to advise. And 900 special incidents. 6, I didn't pursue that one. And yeah, that's generally.
Thank you. That's very helpful. But all of those different types of calls, adding up to your 5,017, 18, whatever it is.
Correct.
Those are all included in our overlapping call stats as well, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that's got to be very frustrating when you have 3 calls on and one of them turns out to be one of these types that isn't an emergency.
Correct. And that's, again, where we're going to find the battalion chief coming in and doing that system status management. They're going to be able to say, hey, no, divert from that call, go here. I will come in and handle that. And he will be managing that. Yeah.
Chief, if you find that you have any recurring nuisance type calls, some jurisdictions have adopted ordinances billing for those. Not so much on the fire side, I don't think, but like automated alarm systems that false alarm more than a certain frequency ended up billed for the calls.
I hear the staff sometimes tell us, "Oh, it's that place. We've got to go back to that place again. Got to go back to that place again."
Well, let's put that on a list to think about. Yeah. that would be the type of thing we might want to address. I think we definitely also hear your overtime concern. I mean, that's a real concern. I think, as the Chief indicated, there are real reasons to overtime that can't be escaped. But there's also the real reality that we don't have any money to cover overtime that isn't accounted for in the budget, and that's despite the real problem that the 26 budget is set quite a bit lower than 25 actuals. So we're going to have to reconcile that. So we're going to have to work that question, see if we can reduce it some, and see how else we can pad the budget. So we'll have more info on that for the second quarter report.
I have just a couple of comments. So thank you for the presentation, especially on your short notice of taking over all of these different line items. One of the things that I'm kind of curious about, not to respond tonight, but as you start to get more comfortable in the information, and if you have any, you're willing to kind of take an attempt on answering, is, why is there a higher volume of patient transports than other areas? I don't know if that's just we get less calls and they're more serious calls or what, but if any insight to that would be helpful. And then also, are the overlap of calls happening for a reason? Are we having longer response times? Is it because the hospital isn't able to take patients as quickly? I don't want you to answer now because I feel like all of these are opening a can of worms, but I think it's things that if and when you do get any more kind of insight, we'd like to hear about. Another item is, I know we have the community paramedic. I didn't hear much about it today, which is fine, but always nice to hear about any kind of update with that position. And then finally, as we start to see Medicaid cuts happening, I believe this fall, is that going to impact our reimbursement for transporting patients? Just as another thing that when you come back next time would be interesting to have insight to.
Okay, thank you.
And you're on Public Safety Committee, right? Yeah, so part of our objective here, I think, is for those issues which might get teased out in the committee meetings, for the department heads to track them and then bubble them up to our next quarterly update so that you all hear about them.
Okay.
So thank you. Anybody else on fire? Well, it sounded a little weird. Fiber. Anybody have questions for fiber? That's great because
just one thing for fiber. I'm looking forward to hearing about what you said. What are other services we can do to generate revenue? At some point, I would love to hear your thoughts about that.
And they're still brainstorming, so yeah, that might be a little while. Yeah. IT, please, no questions on IT. Legal.
Yeah. Darcy, I just want to say thank you for all the stuff you're doing in-house. It does seem like the amount of work that your department's taking on is a lot, and looks like I'm just impressed by that.
I totally agree. I mean, just in the 8 years I've been on council, the many things that you've saved us from ourselves, or even the wisdom of where not to tread, because, these are the things that may happen as a result of that. The only thing that I would, this is sort of for you and the mayor. I know you guys, we've talked interdepartmentally about grants and opportunity. The biggest thing that I think is a challenge ahead, and the mayor and I have talked about this before, is also trying to find other grant resources. And sometimes that's limited in the sense that each of the department heads are already full, already got things happening, already trying to manage this good beast. And so, I think that pushing forward, finding other avenues of finding out about grants to make it happen would be profitable by the investment.
Thank you. And to Mr. Kerr's point, especially about land use appeals, and to Mr. Coleman's point in his presentation, I feel like there's almost not a day that goes by that we're not touching a land use appeal in some way. So if you sense some frustration from us about that, that's part of the reason why. Any other questions for legal? Any questions for HR?
Yes. One quick thing. I know, Kendall, we spoke once about the move to reach beyond the normal methods to make sure that we're approaching, a diverse group of talented people that we want to recruit. And what I appreciate about what you've done when I was on the personnel committee is that we talked about it. I knew you were implementing as much as possible as you were moving forward. So I want to say thank you for that, but I'm also looking to continue that, the idea of reaching to these other departments at, at other universities too, just to make sure that, again, we are approaching our world as our world is changing. And also, our city is really stellar in the sense of the diverse group of people come. And, I think one of the things that I try to do, as well as all of my council members, is to try to make sure that when anybody comes to our city, that they know that they're welcome, that they know that they're welcome to spend their money with us, and that we, if you're good, we'll keep you here. If not, the chief will deal with you. Okay, that's a little bit of a joke, but you know what I'm speaking
They
to.
do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess that wasn't a question, but
Slightly was. She
Okay.
understood, but
Okay.
again,
any other questions for HR?
Not a question, but I did want to thank you for emphasizing and continuing to work on staff retention, because I think, as we've discussed from every department here, our people are our greatest assets. They are fantastic, and we want to keep them and
Yes.
develop them. So thank you for making that a priority.
Yes.
We're making sure HR is resources for humans, not just treating humans as resources, which is not the tagline that Kendall adopted for her department. But we are also very dedicated to adding staff to the HR department, which council has already authorized, except contingent on that contract that we weren't able to terminate. So that is on the horizon as soon as we can find the money to cover that. Sounds like no other questions for HR? Okay, we're back to the beginning. Finance. And finance will also be here next week. Although it will be Rhonda instead of Steve to provide the first quarter revenue and expense report. So any questions for Steve, though, at this point about his presentation about the work of his department?
I have two questions, two things, Mr. Walters. One thing is, and this may not be appropriate to say right here, right now, but it's all good intending. All right, have we ever considered I know water rates that we are charging, and I'm not speaking directly about what we are charging our, the citizenry. What I'm trying to address are the water rates, wholesale water rates, corporate water rates. I think that the pain that we're all under, meaning from the standpoint of rising costs, the globe over right now. Have we ever thought about raising that just the tiniest bit? They wouldn't even feel it, but it would also help us with, where we can use those dollars, if that's appropriate. That's just one thing. And I know we're talking about it, but you don't really have to give an answer. And the second thing.
I think it might be worth answering though.
Good.
So do you want to let him do that one then come
All right.
back? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, and it's a good question. So just as a so we have several segments within our water system we've talked about. And as far as, so we have a refinery system, regional system. So the regional customers are wholesale customers, and the city of Anacortes is one of those wholesale customers. So we as a city pay the same rate as the refineries, Oak Harbor, and then within our city rates, then we charge that additional amount that we need to maintain our in-city system. And we look at that on an ongoing basis. We cannot make money on the system. It's has to pay its own way, but we can't collect excess funds. And once those funds are collected into the water fund, it has to be used within that water fund system.
Okay, so you're saying, we are looking at it, have been looking at it, and so whatever can be done will be done But, you know, I also want to say to you how much I appreciate what you do. You do an extraordinary job. Being conservative financially is everything at this point, and you've led that way for us. So thank you. Last question I have is that sometimes, you know, we've got businesses that want to come here to Anacortes. One of the things is hotel occupancy. That's been a big discussion. Obviously some of my constituents have reached out to me about, and how we don't necessarily have the data associated with how many rooms, you know, vacancy rates. I know we're getting tax dollars, and I was speaking about it to a dear friend. It seems she's a technical wonk. And so at the end of the day, you know, if we have other hotels that want to come, you know, that data that they want to know, we really don't have. And it makes it a little difficult because it's a leap into the dark. I think she was suggesting that there was a way we might reverse engineer the dollars that we're getting for, you know, LTAC, and put, you know, there's a way we could reverse engineer and just sort of come up with a reasonable guesstimate, which we could apply to other hotels once to come. Because when we have events here, the hotels are all gone and people are having to stay everywhere else. And, you know, I know that's both a good and a bad problem, but at the end of the day, having a better balance. So one of the things that I'm hoping we can figure out is sort of having a guesstimate of, you know, how many rooms are occupied, how they're not, and then it'll help us on the stratus of cost. You know, you got higher end and lower end. Does that make sense?
Sure, you bet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think we might be able to do that. However, would we be able to then share that data? Because wouldn't it be based on proprietary information? I mean, maybe
It may
in
not be
aggregate.
specific. You know, we could have numbers associated with different ones, but so there's no, it's almost like HIPAA data in the sense that we don't want to identify which hotel you're. But what I'm hoping our goal is to find out during these times that there's a bigger vacancy that we have, or they're filled up. We got a 1%, 2% vacancy. So when we speak to another potential hotelier, like the Port's trying to consider one, there are other people trying to consider, that we can say, look, this is this is the information we have. I'm not sure we have that now. And from what I understood, and I could be wrong, from what I understand, that there are hoteliers that considered coming, but the issue was for them, they had no clue as to what we were specifically doing here in Anacortes and what that vacancy rate was. And so, you know, we wouldn't tell the business of, you know, the Majestic or any of the others. What we could just show is that there's a hole here for these events.
And yeah, it seems like that's something we might be able to pull off. And the Port has a consultant on board, so we can connect with them.
Thank you.
On that question.
Just to follow up, Mr. Young, I also think it would be a great question for Economic Development Committee meeting tomorrow, because we'll have the Skagit Tourism ED there,
Excellent.
who may be able to assist us with that, at least countywide.
Think so. Okay.
Any other questions for finance or anybody else?
Not a question, but thank you all very much. This has been incredibly informative and really appreciate the time you've put into it.
Thank you, Mr. McDougall. Thank you all very much. At council members, at your one-on-ones with me, I'll be asking you for feedback on this format. I think that this presentation will help us establish a baseline. We're going to refine the metrics. We're going to refine the strategic goals. We can refine the format based on your feedback as well. This took us, you know, a little bit more than 3 hours. And I don't think that is an extraordinary amount of time to spend for us quarterly on the depth and breadth of the departments and the services that the city offers, but also certainly open to feedback on how we might evolve it. So thank you all. We'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting and see y'all next week.